Chapter 1. The Enchantress, Lu Ruyan. Hey, Li, you are summoned by the Master. A pair of young men and women stood before Li Mubai with an air of arrogance, their eyes filled with disdain, as if the individual before them was not a person, but a mere insect. Upon hearing these words, Li Mubai regarded the duo with a cautious demeanor. This man and woman could be considered his nominal senior brother and sister, yet it was merely a formality. After all, they were inner disciples of the Master, while he was just a lowly outer disciple. Moreover, he was the only outer disciple on the misty peak the Master had likely taken him in solely for the purpose of menial labor. As a result, his status was exceedingly lowly. Outer disciples were often subject to ridicule. He was responsible for all the arduous and unclean tasks on the misty peak, and among all the senior brothers and sisters, Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan delighted in tormenting him the most, as if mocking him had become an integral part of their amusement. Lin Bufan, of noble lineage, was the son of an elder within the sect and possessed decent cultivation aptitude. He had been accepted by the Master several years ago, yet his character left much to be desired. Relying on his father's influence, he had harmed countless female disciples within the sect and even preyed upon mortal women despite being a cultivator himself. Lu Ruyan had actually joined the sect later than Li Mubai, yet as an outer disciple, he could only respectfully address her as senior sister. It was unclear when the two had become involved, but it must be said that Lu Ruyan was indeed exceptionally beautiful. Her skin was like snow, her features picturesque, as if every detail had been meticulously carved. Those eyes, brimming with affection, sparkled like stars, deep and enchanting. With a high-bridged nose and slightly parted ruby lips, her mouth curved into a faint smile, exuding an irresistible allure. Dressed in a flowing red gown adorned with intricate embroidery, her graceful figure and elegant curves resembled that of a celestial being descending to earth. Li Mubai had once fantasized about Lu Ruyan, yet she looked down upon him and instead cozied up to Lin Bufan. Feeling somewhat hesitant to meet their gaze, he recalled how just days prior, he had been ridiculed by Lu Ruyan for stealing a few glances at her, and subsequently beaten by Lin Bufan. Li Mubai sensed that Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan were likely to mock him once more. Senior brother and sister, I am merely an outer disciple. What could the Master possibly want with me? You must know that I do not even have the qualifications to meet the Master on ordinary days. Lu Ruyan lightly intertwined her arm with Lin Bufan's, her demeanor sultry as she delicately placed a hand before her nose, as if Li Mubai exuded some foul odor. Regardless, we have delivered the message. If the Master chooses to punish you later, do not blame us for not warning you. Come on, senior brother, let's go. Seeing this outer disciple brings me nothing but bad luck. Didn't you say yesterday that you would help me clear my body? The junior sister is eagerly waiting. After expressing her disdain towards Li Mubai, Lu Ruyan turned to Lin Bufan with utmost affection. Lin Bufan, captivated by Lu Ruyan's flirtatious charm, couldn't help but smile, for this junior sister was indeed quite provocative, especially in bed, her skills leaving him in a state of bliss. Observing Lu Ruyan's alluring demeanor, Lin Bufan felt a strong urge to reach for her more voluptuous areas. Ah, senior brother, there are still people here. People? All I see is a waste of space. There's no one here. Ah, senior brother is right. This Li Mubai is indeed a waste. Despite having entered the sect for so many years, he remains utterly devoid of cultivation. It is an honor for him to serve as an outer disciple on this misty peak. Unlike you, senior brother, who is so powerful, it leaves one yearning for more. Hearing Lu Ruyan's flattery, Lin Bufan looked down at Li Mubai with an air of superiority, then turned to grasp Lu Ruyan's hand, leading her toward his residence, with their intentions all too clear. At this moment, Lu Ruyan's body was nearly pressed against Lin Bufan's. Senior brother, how pitiful that Li is. He probably doesn't even know what a woman tastes like. Why? Do you wish to let him have a taste? Allow him to experience the joys of being a man? Senior brother, what a thing to say. I am your woman. How could I possibly take a liking to that waste? Now let's hurry, for I can hardly wait. Fear not. Soon you shall enjoy yourself, and I will procure that elixir you desire from my father. I knew you were the best, senior brother. Li Mubai watched as the two gradually departed, unable to suppress a gnash of his teeth. In truth, he was not originally from this world. He had traversed into this realm as an infant over 20 years ago. Upon realizing that this was a world of cultivation, he had anticipated that he held the script of a protagonist, believing he could become the hero of a fantastical tale. Yet he found himself to be an utterly incapable waste, unable to even perform the simplest of breathing techniques. Having spent 8 years as an outer disciple since entering the Misty Peak, he had grown accustomed to the disdainful glances and mockery from others, particularly from Lin Bufan. He could not fathom what had provoked him, as Lin Bufan had frequently bullied him since he joined the Misty Peak. Despite having endured much humiliation at the hands of Lin Bufan, he felt powerless to retaliate. After all, Lin Bufan's father was an elder of the sect. Thus, he could only swallow his pride, but he couldn't shake the uncertainty of whether Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan's claims were true. Why had the master summoned him? It should be noted that in the 8 years since he entered the Misty Peak, he had encountered the master, Shui Qingyao, only a handful of times, let alone being personally summoned by her. Could it be that these two were deceiving him? Yet, he had no choice but to go if it truly was a summons from the master. Failing to attend would surely incur her wrath. The master of the Misty Peak, Shui Qingyao, was the daughter of the previous sect leader. The only time Li Mubai had come close to her was 8 years ago, upon ascending the Misty Peak, at which point he had been utterly captivated. Shui Qingyou's beauty was beyond description. She fulfilled all his fantasies of a celestial being. Indeed, even the praises sung in the Luotian fable could scarcely capture even a fraction of her splendor. Chapter 2. Allowing Li Mubai to experience the flavor of women? The mere thought of being summoned by the master stirred excitement within Li Mubai. After all, he had never had the privilege of a private audience with her during his years at the Misty Peak. Yet, a tinge of worry crept in. Cold Lin Bufan and Lu Ruyan be deceiving him? If Shui Qingyao had not truly summoned him, and he approached her unannounced, would it provoke her ire? As he pondered these thoughts, he made his way to the summit of the Misty Peak, where the palace resided, the dwelling of his master, Shui Qingyao, who also served as the head of the Taishan sect. While Li Mubai ascended toward the peak, Lin Bufan and Lu Ruyan arrived at Lin Bufan's quarters. Lu Ruyan leaned gently against Lin Bufan, their garments strewn across the bed. At that moment, Lin Bufan gazed at Lu Ruyan's form with immense satisfaction. Having been with many women, both cultivators and mortals alike, he had never encountered one as exquisite as Lu Ruyan. In terms of beauty, Lu Ruyan would undoubtedly stand among the finest female disciples in the Taishan sect. Were it not for his father's status as an elder, he would not have had the chance to indulge in her charms. Of course, in Lin Bufan's eyes, the most exceptional woman in the entire Taishan sect remained Shui Qingyao, though he could only fantasize about her. Despite his father's esteemed position, it paled in comparison to Shui Qingyou's status as the head of the Misty Peak, and most importantly, Shui Qingyao was the daughter of the previous sect leader, with the current sect leader being her senior. It was through his father's connections that he had been able to join the Misty Peak, yet he was immensely satisfied to have had the opportunity to be with someone as remarkable as Lu Ruyan. As he beheld Lu Ruyan, her face flushed with a hint of crimson, she was doing her utmost to present her most alluring self, her garments long discarded, with strands of hair teasingly obscuring her indecorous areas. Senior brother, do you think that Li will truly go to find the master? Who knows? I heard the master is currently in seclusion. If that Li Mubai were to recklessly approach her, it would undoubtedly provoke her wrath, and he would surely face the consequences. Lu began to sway her waist with abandon, akin to a water snake that tightly entwined Lin Bufan. However, a sense of peculiarity lingered in her heart, for her initiation into the world of cultivation had come much later than both Li Mubai and Lin Bufan. Upon entering the realm of the Misty Peak, she discerned that Lin Bufan seemed to target Li Mubai at every turn. Moreover, it became apparent to her that Lin Bufan possessed an insatiable lust, prompting her to cater to his desires. On one hand, she sought to entice him with her beauty, for Lin Bufan was the son of a venerable elder from the Taishan sect. If she could attach herself to such a formidable figure, her path to cultivation would undoubtedly become considerably smoother. In addition to employing her allure, she also engaged in Lin Bufan's derision of Li Mubai. Hoping to win his favor, by joining in the mockery. Yet Lu Ruoyan found herself perplexed logically. Lin Bufan and Li Mubai should have had little interaction. So why was Lin Bufan so intent on targeting Li Mubai? One could not deny, however, that Li Mubai's appearance far surpassed Lin Bufan's. Perhaps Lin Bufan was merely consumed by jealousy? The mere thought of Li Mubai's looks evoked a sense of regret within Lu Ruoyan. What a pity for such a handsome visage. When she first arrived at the Misty Peak, she believed Li Mubai to be a highly skilled senior brother. After all, even clad in coarse garments, he exuded an otherworldly charm. Yet, she later discovered that he was merely an unremarkable servant disciple devoid of any cultivation. Had she not now secured Lin Bufan's favor, she would have wished to experience what Li Mubai was like, particularly given his striking appearance that eclipsed Lin Bufan's by a considerable margin. It seemed a taste of such allure would not be in vain. Of course, it would only be a fleeting indulgence, as she had already embarked on her path of cultivation, while Li Mubai would likely remain a mere mortal throughout his life. Should the occasion arise, she would not hesitate to introduce Li Mubai to the pleasures of womanhood. If he were to learn of her intentions, he might feel eternally grateful. After all, as a servant disciple, his fate was likely sealed in mediocrity. With these thoughts swirling in her mind, Lu Ruoyan continued to sway her sinuous waist while leaning closer to Lin Bufan's ear, her lips brushing against his skin. "Senior brother, why do you persist in targeting Li Mubai? Has he ever wronged you?" In the midst of this, Lu Ruoyan even envisioned Lin Bufan's features morphing into those of Li Mubai, her eyes fluttering shut as her movements grew more fervent. Suddenly, Lin Bufan felt a surge of blood rising within him, particularly as Lu Ruoyan seemed to exert even more effort in her actions. He could no longer contain himself, and after a moment, exhaled deeply. "Junior sister, your allure is truly becoming overwhelming, making it increasingly difficult for me to maintain my composure." Upon hearing his words, Lu Ruoyan feigned compliance, yet a flicker of disdain glimmered in her eyes. "Oh no, it is you, senior brother, who are becoming increasingly impressive, leaving your junior sister utterly breathless. Surely, there is no man in this world more formidable than you." The flattery from Lu Ruoyan filled Lin Bufan with immense satisfaction, as any man would naturally take pride in such affirmations. Unbeknownst to him, Lu Ruoyan was merely playing along. Seeing her features clouded with allure only deepened his satisfaction. Over the years, he had depleted his physical vitality, often resorting to auxiliary pills before engaging in such endeavors. Yet this time, he had not consumed any pills. It was solely through his own prowess that he had brought Lu Ruoyan to this state. It seemed his vigor had not waned with time. Cradling Lu Ruoyan's delicate form, Lin Bufan savored the moment. "Junior sister, you inquired why I target that Li Mubai? Indeed, senior brother, I am quite curious. Has that Li ever provoked you in the past?" "Provoked me? He is unworthy. In my eyes, he is but a mere insect. My torment of him is merely for amusement. Do you not find it entertaining? He possesses an appealing exterior, yet is a complete waste devoid of any cultivation. His fate is forever tied to that of a servant disciple." Chapter 3. The ordinary yet confident Lin Bufan. Upon hearing Lin Bufan's words, which were tinged with a hint of jealousy, Lu Ruoyan began to comprehend the truth. Lin Bufan had been oppressing Li Mubai out of envy for his looks. With this thought in mind, Lu Ruoyan started to dawdle, leaning closer to Lin Bufan's ear and whispering softly, "Senior brother, when it comes to appearance, how could that Li compare to you? You are the true embodiment of elegance. A paragon of charm. In my opinion, he doesn't even qualify to be mentioned in the same breath as you. Moreover, not only are you handsome, but in every other regard, you are a man among men. I must admit, I still feel a bit apprehensive after what just transpired. Next time, you mustn't be so rough with your junior sister." Hearing Lu Ruoyan's words and feeling her actions, Lin Bufan's interest was piqued once again. "Ha, junior sister, you are absolutely right. What qualifications does Li Mubai have to compare with me? Rest assured, junior sister, next time I will be gentle to— Oh dear, senior brother, you are so mischievous. Ha, you little enchantress, I could almost devour you whole." Just as Lin Bufan was about to continue, Lu Ruoyan gently placed her hand against his chest. "Junior sister, what do you mean by that? Are you suggesting that I was too forceful just now?" and that you wish to take a moment to rest? Upon hearing this, Lu Ruyan feigned a look of complete satisfaction and agreement, while internally she was filled with contempt. After all, she hadn't felt much at all, yet still had to put on an act of fulfillment, that if it weren't for the cultivation resources, who would be willing to associate with someone like him? He was lacking in both looks and prowess. Observing Lin Buffon's eager expression, Lu Ruyan adopted a pitiful demeanor, as if she had suffered a great injustice. What troubles you, junior sister? If you wish to rest, just tell me directly that I am not one to rush you. Senior brother, you may be happy, but do you know the struggles I face? After all these years in the sect, I still have not reached the foundation establishment stage. You promised to help me acquire a foundation establishment pill. Yet I haven't even seen a glimpse of one. You aren't deceiving me, are you? Upon hearing this, Lin Buffon realized that Lu Ruyan was seeking a favor from him. However, acquiring a single foundation establishment pill was not a significant matter for him, especially considering how comfortable Lu Ruyan made him feel, that he couldn't continuously deny her the chance to see some benefits. Could he? Rest assured, junior sister, I would never deceive you. It's merely a small foundation establishment pill. I shall go to my father shortly to procure one for you. With it, I believe you will surely succeed in establishing your foundation. At that time, you will officially embark on your cultivation journey. Upon hearing this, a glimmer of surprise flashed in Lu Ruyan's eyes. The reason she was willing to associate with Lin Buffon was precisely for such resources. The path of cultivation was fraught with challenges. Although she had been a member of the Tai Xian sect for several years, she had yet to achieve foundation establishment, particularly since her master, Shui Qingyao, showed little concern for her disciples. Even if she were to receive attention, it would hardly extend to a mere inner disciple like herself. The only resources she received were the ordinary pills distributed by the sect, which were of little use for cultivation. Conversely, the foundation establishment pill was an invaluable resource for any sect, as only after establishing a foundation could one truly consider themselves a practitioner of cultivation. Achieving foundation establishment was the most arduous hurdle in a cultivator's journey, with countless individuals remaining stagnant before this stage for their entire lives. Despite being an inner disciple on the misty peak of the Tai Xian sect, one could easily become an inner disciple simply by reaching the qi refinement stage. Cases like Li Mubai's were exceedingly rare. After all, in such a spiritually rich place as the Tai Xian sect, attaining the qi refinement stage was relatively straightforward, that as long as one could successfully draw in qi, they would enter the qi refinement stage. However, for the foundation establishment stage, it was a stroke of luck for even 1 in 100 to succeed. If Lin Buffon's father were not an elder of the sect, she would hardly spare him a glance. Thank you, senior brother. My ability to establish a foundation relies entirely on you. At present, Lu Ruyan was merely at the qi refinement stage, while Lin Buffon had already achieved foundation establishment, which made it challenging for her to face him. Once she broke through to the foundation establishment stage, she would certainly serve him well. Lu Ruyan became increasingly eager in her demeanor. Upon hearing her words, Lin Buffon agreed with her assessment. After all, he was indeed at the foundation establishment stage, while Lu Ruyan was still at the qi refinement stage. Facing the impact of a foundation establishment practitioner, she would undoubtedly struggle. It seemed he needed to expedite her advancement to the foundation establishment stage to ensure his own enjoyment. However, there was no rush for such matters. The most important thing now was to let his junior sister witness his masculine side. Very well, my dear Ruyan, I shall await your service once you establish your foundation. But for now, you must help me extinguish this fire within me. Oh, dear senior brother, you are insufferable. Do you not enjoy it? I do, of course. I'm quite fond of it in that moment. The two of them became entwined once more. Meanwhile, Li Mubai was blissfully unaware that the so-called summons from his master was merely a ruse concocted by Lin Buffon and Lu Ruyan. He had unwittingly become a pawn in their game. Yet, despite his inner doubts about whether he was being deceived, Li Mubai found himself with little choice. After all, what if his master truly wished to see him? Thus, he made his way towards the pinnacle of Misty Peak, where he could finally see the residence of his master, Shui Qingyao. Describing it as a residence might be an understatement. It was more akin to a majestic palace. Atop the mountain, a grand palace loomed amidst the clouds, resembling a celestial realm descended upon the earth. Its eaves arched like cranes preparing to take flight, and the glazed tiles shimmered with a kaleidoscope of colors under the sun. Surrounding the palace, ethereal mists swirled, akin to delicate veils, at times insubstantial, at times dense. Under the nurturing embrace of this celestial aura, the flora and fauna around the palace flourished vibrantly, with exotic flowers and herbs exuding delightful fragrances. Chapter 4. The Arrival of the System. The yellow-haired physique upon witnessing such an ethereal environment. Li Mubai couldn't help but swallow hard. After all, the location with the most abundant spiritual energy on Misty Peak was none other than his master, Shui Qingyao's abode. And she had always favored tranquility, so there were rarely any disciples lingering there in that moment. Li Mubai felt a twinge of anxiety. He wondered whether Shui Qingyao had indeed summoned him. After all, if he disturbed her cultivation, he might face severe repercussions. With this thought, Li Mubai felt somewhat helpless as a transmigrant. He had somehow ended up in such a predicament. Unlike the protagonists of fantasy novels who achieved greatness or were surrounded by beauties, he found himself, after over 20 years, still merely a menial disciple. It wasn't that he lacked ambition. Over the years, he had devised countless methods to draw in qi, yet for some inexplicable reason, he had never succeeded. He could sense the existence of the spiritual energy around him, yet he could not guide it into his body. In this world, the distinction between mortals and cultivators was clear. Mortals could not perceive the spiritual energy. Yet under its subtle nourishment, their bodies were far superior to those of individuals from his previous world. Conversely, cultivators could sense the spiritual energy, but their aptitude varied, leading to different cultivation speeds. Those with unique physiques or bloodlines found their paths to cultivation much smoother. However, individuals like him, who could perceive the spiritual energy yet could not cultivate, were a rarity. Over these past 20 years, Li Mubai's expression became increasingly complex as he gazed at the thick, mist-like spiritual energy floating before him, a sense of indescribable melancholy washing over him. Having traversed to this realm, he found himself unable to cultivate, as if the heavens were playing a cruel joke on him. Akin to knowing he had won a massive lottery, yet being unable to claim the prize. Gently extending his hand, it felt as though he could almost touch the dense spiritual energy. Suddenly, an unexpected occurrence transpired. A sound akin to an ancient, sacred bell resonated in Li Mubai's ears, startling him. Stunned for a moment, he frantically glanced around, exclaiming, "Who the hell is ringing that bell?" However, Li Mubai looked around for quite some time, but found no one ringing the bell. Everything seemed normal. Some slightly intelligent birds chirped nearby, as if they had not been disturbed by the recent chime at all. What was the situation? From where did that bell sound emanate? Host detected. System binding in progress. Wait, a system? Li Mubai was utterly astounded. Years ago, he had fantasized about the existence of some kind of system, but over the years, those dreams had long since faded. Yet today, he had actually heard the voice of a system. Is it really you, system? Why did you take so long to arrive? Do you have any idea how I have spent the past 20+ years? In that moment, Li Mubai's emotions were a whirlwind, for he was someone who had been unable to cultivate. Thus, the appearance of the system was akin to a lifeline for him. Yet in response to Li Mubai's heartfelt lament, the so-called system remained silent, as if mechanically executing some command. System binding in progress, that host constitution detected as unique and unable to cultivate. Restructuring host constitution. Upon hearing the mechanical voice in his mind, Li Mubai's heart raced with excitement. The system could resolve his inability to cultivate. Though he had no idea what kind of constitution it would grant him, it surely couldn't be worse than his current one. After all, even an ordinary constitution would still afford him the chance to cultivate. Right now, his body was utterly incapable of cultivation. The natural spiritual energy was entirely beyond his reach, as long as it could help him reshape his constitution. Even if this system offered him no other assistance, he would be eternally grateful. Restructuring host constitution. Extracting special constitutions from the database. Extraction complete. Host has been loaded with the yellow hair constitution. Yellow hair constitution. Naturally manifests with a head of yellow hair. Individuals possessing this constitution are extraordinary and easily garner female affection. Upon hearing the system's voice, Li Mubai's emotions swung from joy to excitement, then to bewilderment, like a roller coaster ride. Although he had merely hoped for a reshaping of his constitution, he still felt a flicker of anticipation when the system mentioned extracting a special constitution. But what on earth was this yellow hair constitution? And did the term naturally manifest even apply here? Was having a head of yellow hair truly considered a natural phenomenon? Wasn't it grand displays like the blazing sun, thunderous skies, or ethereal vapors that truly qualified as such? When did having yellow hair become synonymous with a natural phenomenon? Moreover, what did that description mean, stating that those with this constitution are extraordinary and easily win the favor of women? Was the greatest advantage of this constitution merely to attract women? In an instant, Li Mubai recalled some distant memories from over 20 years ago. After all, on the planet he once inhabited, the term yellow hair had always carried a distinct connotation, often associated with unspeakable things. For instance, when one thought of yellow hair, images of bull-headed beings would arise, or scenes from school-themed anime would come to mind, or even the neighbor's wife. Countless people despised yellow hair, yet aspired to be it. However, at that moment, Li Mubai didn't care about any of that. What mattered was the ability to cultivate, and no matter whether it was yellow hair or pink hair, he would even be content without hair. Still, curiosity piqued. He reached up and plucked a strand of hair from his head. Gazing at the strikingly bright yellow strand in his hand, he was taken aback. After all, he had previously had a full head of black hair. Now his hair had transformed into a dazzling yellow, almost translucent. Wow, it really is yellow hair. This was the first time Li Mubai realized the impressive capabilities of the system. Staring at the yellow hair in his hand, he couldn't help but swallow hard. It truly had turned yellow. System, what exactly are you? And why have you chosen me? Can you communicate with me? What is your primary function? Can you help me cultivate? Or can you assist me in other ways? Chapter 5. First sign-in, pink remote control. However, in response to Li Mubai's pressing inquiries, the system offered no answers. For a moment, Li Mubai felt perplexed. Was the system some form of artificial intelligence with limitations? After all, he had read many novels in his previous life where systems could communicate with their hosts. Did his system really lack the ability to converse with him? Just as Li Mubai pondered this, the mechanical voice sounded once more in his mind. System binding successful. Restructuring host constitution completed. This system is a sign-in system. The host may sign in daily. Each sign-in grants system rewards. All sign-in items are random. And final interpretation rights belong to this system. Upon hearing the cold, detached words of the system, Li Mubai began to grasp the situation that it seemed his system was designed for daily sign-ins, where each sign-in would yield certain rewards. He just wondered if these rewards could aid him in cultivating. System, now that binding is complete, can I sign in today? Host is not yet signed in today. Would you like to proceed with the sign-in? Yes, without hesitation, Li Mubai chose to affirm, for there was a daily opportunity to sign in. If he didn't sign in, he would waste that chance. Thus, there was no reason to delay, and he was eager to see what he might receive on his first sign-in. With a mix of excitement and apprehension, Li Mubai awaited the system's final response. Congratulations, host, for completing today's sign-in. As this is the host's first sign-in, the reward pool's explosion rate has been increased. Congratulations, host, on receiving a heavenly grade treasure, the pink remote control. The moment Li Mubai heard the system's voice, it felt as if he had just quenched his thirst with a chilled soda on a sweltering summer day, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. A heavenly grade treasure? This reward was astonishingly formidable. The system was truly extraordinary. To reward him with a heavenly grade treasure on the very first day of signing in was simply unbelievable. For a moment, Li Mubai was so excited he could hardly articulate his thoughts. Having been a mere miscellaneous disciple at Tai Xian Sect's Misty Peak for several years, he had come to understand this world to some extent. The prevailing pursuit here was cultivation, which naturally required skills, treasures, and elixirs. These aids were of utmost importance to a cultivator. Among them, skills and treasures were categorized into ranks: yellow, green, earth, and heaven, from lowest to highest. Not to mention heavenly grade treasures, even earth grade treasures were considered legendary in the eyes of ordinary cultivators. In the entire southern region where Tai Xian Sect was located, there were countless sects, yet the number of known heavenly grade treasures was exceedingly limited. At least, Li Mubai had never heard of Tai Xian Sect possessing any heavenly grade treasures. Despite being a prestigious sect in the southern region, Tai Xian Sect had not a single heavenly grade artifact. Underscoring the rarity of such treasures in this world, Tio have obtained such a rare artifact merely through his first sign-in with the system felt surreal. Although the name of this heavenly grade item was somewhat peculiar. No matter how strange it was, it remained a heavenly-grade treasure. With that thought, Li Mubai grew anxious. System. What is this pink remote control? How do I use it? The sign-in items can temporarily reside in the system space. The host may extract the sign-in items into reality. Once the items are extracted, they cannot be returned to the system space. The sign-in items are directly bound to the host and cannot be used by others. Hearing the system's explanation, Li Mubai swallowed hard in anticipation. System, extract the pink remote control for me. As soon as Li Mubai's words fell, he found a small, exquisite pink remote control materializing in his hand, and his expression shifted to one of confusion. For the moment the petite pink remote appeared, he found that he instinctively understood all its functions. First and foremost, this pink remote was peculiar. Secondly, it was astonishingly peculiar. This device bore an uncanny resemblance to the jumpy toys he had known in his past life. Was this truly the legendary heavenly-grade treasure? A heavenly-grade treasure was just a jumping toy. Staring at the delicate pink remote in his hand, Li Mubai felt his mind teetering on the brink of collapse. After sorting through the information he had received in his mind, Li Mubai discovered that this remote control wasn't as disappointing as he had initially thought. Usage instructions for the pink remote control. The host currently has one binding slot available. This remote can increase the number of opposite-sex binding slots by one each time the host's cultivation advances a stage, with no upper limit on binding slots. During the usage of the remote, it can induce extreme pleasure in the opposite sex, simultaneously returning a certain amount of cultivation to the host upon the conclusion of using the remote control. The counterpart experiences a brief acceleration in their training speed that if the counterpart is in a negative state, utilizing this remote control to elevate them to an optimal condition enables the complete eradication of all negative states. After conducting extensive research on the usage of the pink remote control, Li Mubai realized that this device in his hand was an extraordinary aid for cultivation. Firstly, he could bind to individuals of the opposite sex, and with each use, he could reclaim varying amounts of cultivation, which appeared to be randomized. Furthermore, this remote control also benefited the bound counterpart, as their training speed would receive a temporary enhancement after his usage. Although the extent of this enhancement remained unknown, the most significant aspect was that if he employed the remote control to bring the counterpart to an indescribable state, he could entirely eliminate all their negative conditions, which was rather terrifying. Just imagine if the person he was bound to was gravely injured and on the brink of death. By cranking the remote's power to its maximum, they could be revived instantly upon entering that particular state. Moreover, these capabilities were not the most alarming. The most daunting feature was the binding quota. With each level he ascended in cultivation, he could increase the number of bindings, with no upper limit, meaning as long as he continued to grow stronger. He could bind more and more individuals of the opposite sex. Regrettably, this remote control could only bind to the opposite sex, yet this was still quite advantageous. After all, even if it allowed binding to males, he likely wouldn't pursue that, as the thought of using a pink remote control on a man felt rather peculiar. For a moment, Li Mubai envisioned a future where he was bound to a multitude of beautiful women, watching his cultivation soar effortlessly, and the best part was that those he bound would have no fear of injury. If they were hurt, he could simply turn the power to maximum, resolving all issues at once. Such a vision was undeniably enchanting. Moreover, the lack of restrictions on binding was crucial. As long as it was an individual of the opposite sex, and he stood near them, he could bind them without needing their consent. With this newfound understanding of the pink remote control, Li Mubai suddenly shifted his gaze forward, where stood the palace of his master, Shui Qingyao. Chapter 6. Master, I am sorry that Li Mubai's gaze was fixed ahead at Shui Qingyao's palace. Still clutching the pink remote control he had just obtained from the system sign and it is worth noting that binding someone with the remote control had no prerequisites, meaning he could indeed use it to bind his master. Shui Qingyao, he was well aware of Shui Qingyao's cultivation level, perfected golden core, merely a step away from becoming a nascent soul cultivator. Currently, the most powerful figure in the Taishan sect was the contemporary sect leader, who happened to be Shui Qingyao's senior brother, and even he had yet to achieve nascent soul level. Thus, Shui Qingyao was already among the most formidable individuals in the Taishan sect. At least on the surface. Who could say if there were ancient beings who had cultivated for centuries, hidden away in seclusion? Li Mubai had heard that the previous sect leader, Shui Qingyao's father, had not passed away, but rather disappeared after transferring the sect leadership. Given the tropes he had encountered in various fantasy novels from his previous life, he speculated that the former sect leader and those elder figures might be in deep meditation within their coffins. Hence, it appeared that the best candidate he could bind was none other than his master, Shui Qingyao. The thought of his master's ethereal beauty, her otherworldly aura, and her exquisitely refined visage ignited a fervor within Li Mubai. Especially when he imagined pressing the remote control after binding Shui Qingyao. He gulped audibly, his gaze burning with intensity as he looked towards the palace. Master, forgive me, although this is for my cultivation. It cannot be denied that this pink remote control would benefit you as well. At the very least, you would no longer need to worry about injuries, and it could accelerate your training speed temporarily. Surely, you would not refuse, would you? You wouldn't want to be injured accidentally, nor would you desire to cultivate at such a sluggish pace, would you? For a moment, Li Mubai felt as if he had awakened some extraordinary power, and the lines he had just uttered felt oddly familiar. Could it be related to the awakening of his peculiar yellow-haired constitution? After all, those words seemed quintessentially something a yellow-haired person would say. Shaking his head, he dismissed those chaotic thoughts. What of being yellow-haired? The joy of being yellow-haired was beyond imagination. As long as he could cultivate, he would embrace it, be it yellow-haired or even rainbow-haired. In that moment, Li Mubai's resolve solidified as he tightly gripped the petite pink remote control and made his way towards Shui Qingyao's palace. Currently, he lacked any storage treasures, having always been merely a lowly servant disciple. Without even the most basic storage pouch, let alone any advanced storage artifacts. Moreover, items obtained from the system sign-in could not be returned after extraction. So, for now, he could only hold the pink remote control in his hand. Contemplating, Li Mubai realized he needed to find a way to acquire a storage artifact, as the items he could obtain from the system would only increase that he couldn't possibly carry everything with him. Could he, as he pondered, he arrived at the entrance of Shui Qingyao's palace. Master, your disciple Li Mubai seeks an audience. However, after waiting for some time, he heard no response from within. Was his master not at Piamiao Peak? Master, your disciple Li Mubai seeks an audience. This time, he raised his voice slightly, yet still, there was no reply from the palace. Li Mubai felt a pang of anxiety. If Shui Qingyao was absent, he wouldn't be able to bind her. Suddenly, he recalled what Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan had said to him earlier. Hadn't they mentioned that his master had summoned him? If that were the case, why not go in and check? If she wasn't present, so be it. If she was, his impromptu intrusion would surely anger her. However, he could easily shift the blame onto Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan, as it was they who had informed him of the summons. With that thought, Li Mubai, with a heart full of trepidation, gently pushed open the grand door of the palace. The moment he stepped inside, he was astounded to find that the spiritual energy within the palace was far denser than outside. From the exterior, the palace appeared majestic, yet inside was a realm filled with the fragrance of blooming flowers and the melodies of birds, with an array of exotic flora blossoming in vibrant colors. This was his first time entering Shui Qingyao's palace, and Li Mubai couldn't help but marvel that if there truly existed a paradise in this world, it would likely resemble this. After steadying his thoughts, he called out again, Master, your disciple Li Mubai seeks an audience. Yet again, there was silence. That Li Mubai furrowed his brow slightly. Could it be that his master was truly absent? Venturing deeper into the palace, he discovered that it was well equipped with everything. Alchemy rooms, libraries, you name it, but Shui Qingyao was nowhere to be found. The only place left was her sleeping quarters. Was his master perhaps resting? This thought flickered in his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. After all, Shui Qingyao was a perfected golden core cultivator. There was no way such a loud commotion would fail to rouse her. If she was not at Piamiao Peak, then the only other possibility was that she had encountered some unforeseen incident. With that realization, Li Mubai hurried towards Shui Qingyao's sleeping quarters. Master, are you there? He called softly from outside her chamber. But still, there was no response, only a faint, lingering fragrance enveloping the vicinity. This scent was familiar to Li Mubai. He could always detect it from afar whenever he saw Shui Qingyao's. It seemed this fragrance was indeed her signature scent. This indicated that Shui Qingyao was likely within her quarters, but why was she completely unaware of his arrival? In that moment, Li Mubai found himself in a dilemma. Should he leave or push the door open to investigate. Fortune favors the bold, while caution begets demise. Regardless, the reason for my visit this time is to bind Shui Qingyao using the pink remote control. Without encountering her, all else is but empty words. With this thought in mind, Li Mubai pushed the door open and entered. Chapter 7. The Enchanting Master, Shui Qingyao. The moment the door swung open, Li Mubai felt his breath quicken that a wave of exotic fragrance enveloped him. Reminiscent of the scent he had just encountered outside his master's Qing palace, to his astonishment, the aroma within her chamber was even more potent. Most significantly, merely inhaling this scent seemed to invigorate the celestial energy surrounding him. However, this alone was insufficient to explain his racing heartbeat. It was the sight before him that truly captivated his senses. Before him lay his master's bed, elegantly draped with sheer silk curtains. Through the delicate fabric, a stunning figure emerged, partially concealed. Shui Qingyao reclined gracefully on her bed, resembling a blooming flower that exuded an enchanting fragrance. The silky drapes swayed gently, akin to the wings of a fairy, accentuating her form with an alluring air of mystery. Through the translucent veil, her skin appeared as flawless as white jade, radiating a soft glow. Her complexion was fair and delicate, as if bestowed by the heavens, rendering it impossible to look away. The lines of her body flowed with elegance, each curve seemingly sculpted to perfection, exuding an irresistible charm. Her raven hair cascaded like a waterfall over the bed, softly curling and shimmering with a gentle sheen. With her eyes gently closed, long lashes fluttered like the wings of a butterfly. Despite the absence of makeup, her natural beauty was captivating, leaving one utterly entranced. Shui Qingyao's breathing was steady and deep, her body tranquil and relaxed, akin to a slumbering celestial being. Her presence seemed to envelop the entire chamber in an aura of serenity and peace, rendering any sound almost sacrilegious. That Li Mubai stood beside the bed, quietly gazing at Shui Qingyao. Her exquisite form and silk gown, accentuated by the sheer curtains, radiated an irresistible allure that rendered him powerless to resist. Though he was momentarily entranced by the scene before him, Li Mubai hastily composed himself, sensing that something was amiss with Shui Qingyao's state. After all, she was the master of Piaomiao Peak and a practitioner at the peak of the Golden Core stage. Despite having called for her numerous times outside the palace, her silence was troubling. Now that he stood before her, why was there still no response? Had something happened to Shui Qingyao? With concern mounting, Li Mubai stepped forward, apprehensively parting the silk curtains surrounding her bed. The curtains parted. Shui Qingyao's flawless visage came into view, but Li Mubai immediately noticed the unsettling pallor of her complexion. Her breathing was faint, as if she were in a deep slumber. Frowning slightly, Li Mubai was struck by the realization that Shui Qingyao appeared to be injured, and seriously so. After all, he was now at her side. Yet she showed no sign of awareness. Observing her pristine, smooth arms, he swallowed hard and gently pressed his hand against her delicate wrist. Master? Master? What has happened to you? Can you hear me? The silky texture of her skin compelled Li Mubai to apply a bit more pressure. It seemed that in her deep slumber, Shui Qingyao sensed something, as her slightly pale brow furrowed and her long lashes quivered. Her breathing appeared labored, and upon witnessing her reaction, Li Mubai quickly withdrew his hand, instinctively bringing his fingers to his nose, where the exotic fragrance lingered. That moment, Li Mubai could hardly contain his eagerness to use the pink remote control to bind Shui Qingyao. The thought of inducing an indescribable state within her through his actions sent waves of excitement coursing through him. Moreover, given her apparent injury, binding her would allow him to utilize the remote's powers to aid in her recovery. In a heartbeat, Li Mubai gripped the pink remote control hidden within his sleeve. But before he could take any action, Shui Qingyao's lashes began to tremble, and she slowly opened her eyes. As soon as her eyes met the light, her pupils constricted, and she adopted a defensive stance. Her expression serious as she regarded Li Mubai, who stood by her bed. In a faint, yet assertive tone, she spoke. Li Mubai, what brings you here? Upon hearing Shui Qingyao's voice, Li Mubai confirmed his fears. His enchanting master was indeed injured, for her voice lacked its usual strength. Seeing that his beautiful master had awakened, Li Mubai quickly regained his composure. Master, did you not summon me? When did I summon you? Shui Qingyao, still wary, regarded Li Mubai with a piercing gaze. Given her current state, she was in no position to wield any spiritual power, despite being a practitioner at the Golden Core stage. That Li Mubai, a mere servant disciple, was not easily forgotten, especially since the disciples of Piao Peak were few. In comparison to the hundreds or thousands of servant disciples at other main peaks of Taishan sect, Li Mubai was the sole servant of Piao Peak. That it was during the disciple selection years ago that she had taken him in. Drawn by his youthful appearance, though he was younger then, it was evident that Li Mubai possessed a handsome visage that aligned with her aesthetic preferences. Otherwise, she might not have taken in even a single servant disciple. Despite being just a servant disciple, Li Mubai's current condition seemed to fall short of even an ordinary mortal. If he harbored any ill intentions, Shui Qingyao realized she would be powerless to resist. The thought sent a wave of anxiety through her. Li Mubai, bold enough to enter her chamber unbidden and approach her bedside, could have led to unforeseen consequences had she remained asleep. Chapter 8. The allure of the yellow-haired physique. When did I summon you? You, a servant disciple, had no invitation to enter my chamber. Your audacity is remarkable. Shui Qingyao frowned, her gaze serious as she fixed her eyes on Li Mubai standing at her bedside. To Li Mubai, sensing her current state, felt at a loss, as it appeared that his beautiful master lacked the usual fortitude when she regarded him. Her demeanor suggested profound weakness. Was it possible that his master had truly suffered an injury? Despite the troubling thought, Li Mubai bowed respectfully. Master, it is as follows. While tidying Piao Peak, I encountered senior brother Lin Bufan and senior sister Lu Ruyan. They informed me that you summoned me. I am unclear about the specifics, but since it was your summons, it was only right for me to come. However, I waited outside your chamber for quite some time, calling for you, yet you did not respond. Thus I dared to enter, only to find you asleep. That as he spoke, Li Mubai raised his head slightly, stealing a glance at Shui Qingyao resting on the bed. This subtle movement did not escape Shui Qingyao's attention, and her cheeks flushed slightly. She had indeed not heard Li Mubai's voice earlier. Having ventured out recently to seek a spirit beast, she had unexpectedly sustained injuries, and her meridians were sealed. Upon returning to Piao Peak in a heavily injured state, her remaining spiritual energy had been completely spent. With her meridians sealed, she could not sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. And due to her wounds, she could only rest quietly within the palace. To be why this day, her injuries had nearly healed, yet the seals within her meridians remained unresolved. At this moment, she was in all truth akin to an ordinary person. Thus, her slumber had been deeper than usual. Under normal circumstances, as a practitioner at the Golden Core stage, she would not require sleep. Yet her current physical condition dictated otherwise. Upon hearing Li Mubai's words, Shui Qingyao frowned slightly. Are you saying that Lin Bufan and Lu Ruyan sent you? Yes, master. Shui Qingyao slightly narrowed her eyes, and the figure of Lin Bufan appeared in her mind. This fellow truly did not wish to take on disciples. To describe him as inept would be to overestimate him. His character was utterly deplorable, and his thoughts were entirely absent from the realm of cultivation. The way he regarded himself daily was indeed repugnant. However, there was little she could do, for Lin Bufan's father was one of the elders of the Taishan sect, and she owed him a favor. When his father sought her out, she had no choice but to accept Lin Bufan as her disciple. As for Lu Ruyan, while her appearance was commendable, her ambition was overly pronounced. She was willing to associate herself with Lin Bufan to facilitate her own path of cultivation, which likely would not lead to significant achievements in the future. Given her own gender, it was natural that the female disciples at Piao Peak far outnumbered the male ones, and with the overall scarcity of disciples at Piao Peak, she was acutely aware of many things. Were it not for her senior brother insisting that she take on disciples, she would likely have refrained from accepting any, as cultivating alone at Piao Peak would grant her tranquility. Yet, she had not anticipated that Lin Bufan and Lu Ruyan would grow increasingly bold, even daring to misrepresent her words. When had she summoned Li Mubai to see her? These two were indeed audacious. She had never invited them to her quarters, and it seemed that over the years, she had neglected to discipline her disciples, allowing their audacity to flourish. They dared to misrepresent my words, and you, Li Mubai, are even bolder. How dare you brazenly enter my chamber? Li Mubai gazed at Shui Qingyao, half reclining on her bed, her playful demeanor suggesting not anger, but rather a hint of affection, particularly against her slightly flushed cheeks and exquisite features. He was uncertain of Shui Qingyao's exact age. As a cultivator, age held little significance that an ordinary mortal lived but a few decades, yet upon achieving foundation establishment, one could extend their lifespan to 200 years. Following the foundation stage came the golden core stage, whereupon forming a golden core, one became known as a golden core cultivator, with a lifespan reaching an astonishing 500 years. Thus, Li Mubai truly had no knowledge of Shui Qingyao's age. He only recalled her appearance from years prior when he first entered the sect, and she remained unchanged. "Master, I acknowledge my error," Li Mubai respectfully declared to Shui Qingyao once more, given his uncertainty about her current condition. He feared inciting the ire of this beautiful master. What if, by some misstep, she struck him down? Even if his conjecture were correct and Shui Qingyao had sustained severe injuries, he dared not act recklessly, for her cultivation had reached the pinnacle of the golden core stage. Should he overstep, once she regained her strength, she could easily eliminate him with a mere gesture. At that moment, Shui Qingyao regarded Li Mubai with curiosity. Sensing that the once inconspicuous servant-disciple she had accepted years ago now seemed somewhat different, particularly with his striking golden hair, which shone brilliantly. Oddly, she found him quite handsome, though he had always possessed a charming appearance. As he had been a striking young boy during the Ascension Conference, it was not the sole reason she had accepted him in a Piamiao Peak. However, she had seen many attractive men, and it was known that a person's appearance and demeanor could subtly change post-cultivation. It was safe to assert that those of higher cultivation rarely appeared unattractive. Yet at this moment, Li Mubai gave her a peculiar impression, and inexplicably, a flicker of affection arose within her heart, particularly drawn to his dazzling golden hair, which captivated her gaze at Li Mubai. "Master, I am here. What is the meaning of your hair? I recall it was not black before. How has it transformed into this color? Yet it is rather appealing." Upon hearing Shui Qingyao's words, Li Mubai was momentarily taken aback. He had not anticipated that his beautiful master would find his golden hair attractive. Could this be what the system had referred to regarding the golden hair constitution, generating favorable impressions among women? In an instant, Li Mubai recalled the system's previous description of the golden hair constitution. Golden hair constitution, a natural anomaly, adorned with golden locks. Those possessing this constitution are inherently exceptional, easily garnering the favor of women. Could it be that his golden hair constitution had indeed influenced his beautiful master's perception of him? Yet, Li Mubai was uncertain just how much this favor truly amounted to. The curse system was utterly devoid of humanity. Could it not provide a prompt regarding one's favorability? However, Shui Qingyao had not immediately expelled him, which likely indicated the influence of his golden hair constitution. Feeling a surge of anxiety, he tightly grasped the pink remote control in his hand. Meanwhile, Shui Qingyao continued to scrutinize Li Mubai. Sensing an oddity in her servant-disciple today, not only had his hair transformed to a striking golden hue, but she also inexplicably felt a twinge of closeness towards him. Furthermore, she perceived a subtle shift in his aura. Li Mubai was well aware of his inability to cultivate. Otherwise, he would not remain a servant-disciple. Li Mubai, why do you remain silent? Shui Qingyao's curiosity towards her servant-disciple intensified, reporting to Master. I am unsure of the reason for this hair. It changed after I took an AP. That IT was originally black, but now, as you see, it has turned completely golden. Moreover, and most importantly, I can now absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. You are aware of my previous predicament, Master. I could sense the spiritual energy but could not take it into my body. Now, however, I have completely become a chi refining disciple. Li Mubai refrained from mentioning the system and the golden hair constitution. For the system was his greatest secret, one he would not allow anyone else to discover. Thus, he fabricated an excuse, attributing the changes to a simple nap, believing that no one would suspect otherwise. And he doubted anyone could uncover the existence of the system. Once Li Mubai finished speaking, Shui Qingyao's pupils constricted. What did you say? You claim that after a nap, both your body and hair underwent changes. Indeed, that is correct. Upon hearing Li Mubai's confirmation, Shui Qingyao's expression grew serious as she scrutinized him standing before her bed, her heart beginning to race with excitement. For upon hearing his words, Shui Qingyao recalled certain extraordinary constitutions. Within the realm of cultivation, there existed countless unique physical traits, and one could not dismiss the possibility of encountering one at any moment. Some individuals were born with such extraordinary constitutions, while others awakened them through unique experiences. Li Mubai was likely among the latter. If that were all, it would not have provoked such excitement from Shui Qingyao, but she was exhilarated by the knowledge that nearly every extraordinary constitution heralded a future of exceptional potential. These unique traits not only facilitated the path of cultivation, but some were so formidable that for those possessing them, cultivation felt akin to wielding a cheat, allowing them to ascend rapidly until they achieved immortality. After all, history was replete with such instances. Now, her servant disciple Li Mubai at Piaomiao Peak might very well have awakened a special constitution. It was worth noting that within the entire Taishan sect, there was not a single individual with a special constitution. While Taishan sect was regarded as a respectable sect in the southern region, this was merely relative. The world of cultivation was vast. And beyond the southern region lay even broader realms. Rumors of any sect producing someone with a unique constitution were non-existent. However, this was to be expected. If any sect truly gave rise to someone with a unique constitution, they would likely treasure them as a prized possession. For in this ruthless world of cultivation, who did not have enemies, if rival sects were to learn of such an individual, they would surely devise every means to eliminate them. After all, a genius who has grown is a genius, while an unformed genius is nothing. Though this saying may sound crude, it encapsulates the reality of the cultivation world. With these thoughts in mind, Shui Qingyao's expression turned grave to Li Mubai. At your service. Have you spoken of your bodily changes to anyone besides me? Li Mubai was somewhat puzzled by the sudden seriousness of his beautiful master. Could there be more at stake in this matter? Was it perhaps forbidden to disclose his bodily changes to others? Though somewhat perplexed, Li Mubai finally spoke up. I have not confided in anyone else. Yet my strikingly yellow hair is rather conspicuous. Even without mentioning it, others are likely to notice, aren't they, master? Is there something wrong with my hair? Shui Qingyao slowly sat up in bed, gazing at Li Mubai, and shook her head. That it is not your hair that poses a problem, but rather your body. I suspect that you have awakened some unknown physique, one that has altered your body, resulting in your hair turning yellow, enabling you to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, I cannot ascertain precisely what kind of physique it is. After all, such extraordinary physiques are varied and numerous throughout history, yet I have never heard of one that changes a person's hair to yellow. Upon hearing Shui Qingyao's words, Li Mubai was momentarily taken aback, realizing that his beautiful master possessed considerable insight. Knowing one's own circumstances, he reflected that he had indeed awakened a special physique, though it was not entirely of his own doing, as this yellow-haired physique was a gift from the system. Nevertheless, it bore little difference from his own awakening. Yet he remained puzzled. Was not awakening a physique a fortuitous occurrence? Why did his master appear so grave and anxious? Was it improper to discuss the matter of awakening a special physique? Noticing the naive expression on Li Mubai's face, Shui Qingyao felt a twinge of exasperation. This is not your fault, after all. You have been a mere servant disciple for many years, and your understanding of the immortal cultivation world is likely limited. Allow me to impart one piece of wisdom. A genius is only a genius when they have matured. A genius that does not grow is worthless. Do you think our Taishan sect lacks adversaries? Hearing Shui Qingyao's remarks, Li Mubai comprehended the harsh realities of the immortal cultivation realm, where the weak are devoured by the strong. He was merely an ordinary qi practitioner at present. It was entirely possible that he could perish at any moment. Moreover, being aware of his own situation, he recognized that this so-called special physique offered him little aid in his cultivation. Perhaps it could be of some assistance in dealings with certain beings, but the yellow-haired physique merely allowed him to absorb spiritual energy like any normal individual. The true asset that would aid him lay in the pink remote control he possessed, or rather, in the system he had bound to himself. The system's functions were straightforward. He could check in once a day, with the rewards contingent upon his fortune. However, the pink remote control was far more formidable. Although it appeared somewhat frivolous, it was a genuine heavenly tier treasure that could assist him in accelerating his cultivation. In a world where heavenly tier treasures are rare and coveted, one that could aid in cultivation was even more precious. Moreover, The most significant aspect of this pink remote control was that there was no limit to its binding quota. This meant that as long as he continually grew stronger, the number of beings he could bind to the remote would increase, thus enhancing the return of spiritual energy to him. Furthermore, this pink remote control was not solely beneficial to him. It also conferred advantages to those bound to it. Each time it was used, it could briefly elevate the recipient's cultivation speed and even eliminate any negative states they might be experiencing. One could not help but marvel at the extraordinary capabilities of this remote control. It was safe to say that the pink remote control he had acquired through check-in was far superior to the yellow-haired physique bestowed upon him by the system. With this thought in mind, Li Mubai instinctively tightened his grip on the remote, a slight movement that caught Shui Qingyao's attention as she sat half upright on the bed. "What do you have in your hand?" Hesitating for a moment at Shui Qingyao's inquiry, Li Mubai ultimately chose to reveal the pink remote control. After all, the system had previously stated that items obtained through check-in could not be utilized by anyone other than himself. Thus, even if Shui Qingyao were to hold it, it would merely be an ordinary object. Moreover, such an item was non-existent in this world, so Shui Qingyao would undoubtedly be unfamiliar with it. Consequently, Li Mubai boldly presented the pink remote control before Shui Qingyao. "It is nothing, merely a trinket," to be why placing the remote in front of her, a peculiar sensation washed over him. After all, its potential in his previous life was beyond description, and now his beautiful master gazed curiously at the remote, even reaching out to fiddle with it. Observing his enchanting master engrossed in examining the remote, her expression filled with curiosity, Li Mubai could not shake the feeling that she appeared somewhat alluring in that moment. As these thoughts crossed his mind, he could no longer contain himself. With a mere thought, he initiated the binding of Shui Qingyao to the remote control. Since this remote was a reward from the system, he could wield it effortlessly. Even though it was a heavenly tier treasure, binding a being required only a thought, albeit using a small amount of spiritual energy. Presently, due to the yellow-haired physique, he had just entered the realm of Qi practitioners. Thus, he could only bind one being at a time. Once bound, the connection could not be undone, meaning Shui Qingyao would be permanently linked to this pink remote control to bind a second being. He would have to elevate his cultivation to the foundation establishment stage, and similarly for a third being, he would need to reach the golden core stage. However, such considerations were for the future. At present, there was truly no one else worthy of binding to maximize the benefits of this remote control. It would be best to bind a female with a higher cultivation level, thereby increasing the returns to himself. Among the women he could currently encounter, the one with the highest cultivation was none other than his beautiful master, Shui Qingyao. While Shui Qingyao continued to curiously manipulate the remote, Li Mubai successfully completed the binding between it and her, all unbeknownst to her. After a brief examination, Shui Qingyao concluded that it was merely an ordinary trinket from the mortal realm and ceased to pay it further attention. She then turned her gaze back to Li Mubai. "Li Mubai, now that you are a Qi practitioner and have awakened a special physique, I believe it is imperative for you to devote more focus to your cultivation. The path of cultivation is far from simple. Throughout history, countless prodigies have flickered like ephemeral blossoms, ultimately failing to ascend to true immortality. You were once a mortal, merely a servant disciple. While your curiosity for such matters is understandable, I hope you will prioritize your cultivation henceforth." Receiving the remote control that Shui Qingyao had handed to him, Li Mubai felt an overwhelming excitement. He was, after all, equipped with an extraordinary advantage. From this day forward, it seemed his master would assist him in his cultivation. While he entertained these thoughts, he respectfully addressed Shui Qingyao. "Disciple will heed Master's teachings." Pleased to see that Li Mubai seemed to have absorbed her words, Shui Qingyao nodded in approval. "Since you are now a Qi practitioner, you will require corresponding techniques for your cultivation. There is a book titled Tai Xian Heart Sutra on the table. Please retrieve it." Upon hearing Shui Qingyao's instruction, Li Mubai followed her gaze to a quaint antique table not far from the bedside, where an ancient tome rested, exuding a sense of historical significance. But he stepped forward, retrieved the book, and promptly handed it to Shui Qingyao. This technique is known as the Tai Xian Heart Sutra. The inner disciples of our Tai Xian sect primarily cultivate this method, and starting today, you may also begin your practice. In truth, Li Mubai was not particularly concerned about which technique he practiced, given his unique advantages. However, he could not allow such sentiments to surface. Master, my current status is still that of a servant disciple. Servant disciples seem to lack the qualifications to cultivate the Taishan Heart Sutra. Do they not? Chapter 11. Suddenly becoming a direct disciple within the esteemed Taishan sect, the role of a miscellaneous disciple resides at the very bottom of the hierarchy. These disciples are deemed unworthy of engaging in formal cultivation. Only when a miscellaneous disciple successfully completes the process of channeling qi into their body, thus becoming a genuine qi refining scholar, do they attain the status of an official disciple. Only then can they proudly claim to be a member of the Taishan sect. Li Mubai had spent several years as a miscellaneous disciple on the ethereal Piao Miao Peak that as such, he had garnered some knowledge of the Taishan Heart Sutra, a cultivation method categorized as a profound technique within the four realms of heaven. Earth, Xian, and Huang.it is also one of the mainstream practices among the inner disciples of the Taishan sect. For someone of his standing, finding a yellow rank cultivation method in the library might have been feasible. Yet the pursuit of a profound technique was utterly out of reach. Just as Li Mubai contemplated this, he was met with a voice of Shui Qingyao. From this day forth, you shall no longer be a miscellaneous disciple. If you so desire, I can formally accept you as my disciple, allowing you to cultivate this Taishan Heart Sutra, given that you have only just completed the process of channeling qi into your body. This profound technique is perfectly suited for you, if you are willing to become my direct disciple. Upon your successful foundation establishment, I shall provide you with a change in cultivation methods, for the Taishan sect possesses several earth-rank techniques. Upon hearing Shui Qingyao's words, Li Mubai was momentarily taken aback, but he had never anticipated that Shui Qingyao would wish to take him as her direct disciple. The number of miscellaneous disciples on the Piao Miao Peak was exceedingly low. With only himself remaining, in contrast, the inner disciples were numerous, though they paled in comparison to the hundreds or thousands of inner disciples from other main peaks of the Taishan sect. However, even on Piao Miao Peak, there were still dozens if not hundreds of inner disciples. Above the inner disciples, the next tier of status was that of the direct disciples, such as the likes of Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan, both of whom were inner disciples. Lu Ruyan, owing to her beauty and commendable talent, had become an inner disciple. It was rather peculiar for Shui Qingyao to accept disciples based on talent, while she seemed to prioritize aesthetics. This had led to the phenomenon that disciples on Piao Miao Peak, regardless of gender, generally possessed a higher caliber of beauty compared to those from the other main peaks of the Taishan sect. However, were it not for this particular reason, Li Mubai might never have had the opportunity to serve as a miscellaneous disciple on Piao Miao Peak. Aside from Lu Ruyan, Lin Bufan had merely benefited from having a powerful father. Despite Lin Bufan's father being an elder of the Taishan sect and having sought Shui Qingyao's favor, she had still not accepted him as a direct disciple, leaving him merely as an inner disciple to this day. Now, the prospect of Shui Qingyao directly accepting him as her direct disciple meant that Li Mubai's standing within the Taishan sect would instantly surpass that of both Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan. Moreover, having spent considerable time on Piao Miao Peak, he was aware that Shui Qingyao had only 5 direct disciples, all of whom shared the common trait of being exceptionally beautiful women. Now, the opportunity to become the only male direct disciple of Shui Qingyao lay before him. Seeing that Li Mubai remained silent, Shui Qingyao couldn't help but furrow her brow slightly. Did he not wish to be her direct disciple? Was it possible that, after awakening his special physique, he had developed higher standards and looked down upon her? Pondering this, she glanced at Li Mubai, and for some inexplicable reason, she felt that he appeared particularly pleasing to the eye today. She had seen this miscellaneous disciple before. Although handsome, he had never captivated her attention in such a manner. What could it be? Was it merely because he had changed his hair to a shade of yellow? Could such a triviality truly evoke such feelings? Even more perplexing was the burgeoning desire within her to draw closer to him. Shui Qingyao could not fathom the reasons behind her feelings and ultimately attributed it to her admiration for talent. Meanwhile, Li Mubai remained unaware that Shui Qingyao had already been influenced by his yellow-haired physique. Ahem, is it truly a burden for you to become my direct disciple? Shui Qingyao inquired, breaking the silence as Li Mubai remained lost in thought. Upon hearing her voice, Li Mubai snapped back to reality. Though he had obtained a system and possessed a heavenly-grade artifact, the pink remote control, he was still merely an ordinary qi refining scholar. Shui Qingyao, as the peak master of Piao Miao Peak, and a cultivator at the pinnacle of the Golden Core stage. was someone whose stature could potentially ascend to the nascent soul realm at any moment. A formidable ally indeed. Moreover, becoming Shui Qingyao's disciple offered him nothing but advantages that he harbored a few secret ambitions. And now that the pink remote control was bound to his beautiful master, he had no qualms about being a rebellious disciple. After becoming a direct disciple, his opportunities to engage with Shui Qingyao would only increase. With this in mind, Li Mubai earnestly addressed Shui Qingyao. "Thank you, Master Dai, your disciple. Willingly accept the honor of becoming your direct disciple." Upon hearing Li Mubai's declaration, an inexplicable joy welled up within Shui Qingyao. Strangely, she had not realized that her mindset had shifted simply because Li Mubai was willing to become her direct disciple. She promptly rose from her bed. "Very well, from this day forth, you are my 6th direct disciple. Prior to you, I had 5 direct disciples, your senior sisters. Given your years as a miscellaneous disciple on Piao Miao Peak, you are likely familiar with them. However, they are currently away. When they return, I shall introduce you to them." "Yes, Master," as she spoke, Shui Qingyao raised one delicate hand, adorned with a ring embedded with jade. Upon seeing this ring, her brow furrowed slightly to Li Mubai. "I do not wish to keep anything from you that a few days ago. I sustained some injuries and my meridians have been sealed. Although my injuries have healed, I am currently unable to wield any spiritual power. Consequently, I cannot access this spatial ring, and thus cannot provide you with your token of a direct disciple just yet. However, rest assured, once I break through the seal on my meridians, I will ensure that you receive all the resources befitting a direct disciple. For now, you need not return to the miscellaneous disciple quarters. As you are now a direct disciple, it would be inappropriate for you to reside among the miscellaneous disciples that MY Palace has ample vacant rooms. You may select one to stay in temporarily. Once I present you with the token of a direct disciple, you may choose any location on Piao Miao Peak as your permanent residence." Chapter 12. Moving in next to the beautiful master on Piao Miao Peak. Direct disciples possess the privilege of choosing their own living quarters. After selecting a suitable location, they may utilize the resources of Piao Miao Peak to construct their own palaces. With Li Mubai now recognized as Shui Qingyao's 6th direct disciple, he too enjoyed such privileges, similar to those of Shui Qingyao's previous 6 direct disciples, each of whom had their own palace on Piao Miao Peak. However, in comparison to Shui Qingyao's palace, the residences of these direct disciples were considerably inferior in both scale and ambience. What thrilled Li Mubai the most was that his beautiful master had just stated that he could temporarily reside in her palace until he chose a permanent abode. Did this not imply that he would become her neighbor? At this moment, Li Mubai's thoughts drifted to the pink remote control. The mere idea of living next to Shui Qingyao while utilizing the remote control made his blood rush. Noticing that her newly accepted direct disciple seemed lost in a reverie, Shui Qingyao, seated on her bed, inquired with curiosity, "What are you pondering?" "Ah, nothing much, that I simply did not expect to have the opportunity to be accepted as your direct disciple. I am a bit overwhelmed with excitement. And I must admit, I did not anticipate that you would agree to let me stay in your palace. It is only temporary. After all, the status of a direct disciple differs from that of other disciples, and the treatment afforded to you will naturally be distinct from that of the other inner disciples. Until you select your own quarters, it would be improper for you to return to the miscellaneous disciples' residence. Fortunately, I have plenty of spare rooms here. You may choose one that you like to stay in for the time being." "Thank you, Master. Well, if there is nothing else, you may take your leave for now. Feel free to select whichever room you prefer." "Yes, Master." Thus, Li Mubai stepped out of the chamber of Shui Qingyao, glancing at the vacant room adjacent to hers. After a moment's contemplation, he boldly entered, for his enchanting master had previously declared that he could choose any room he desired. Naturally, he opted to reside next to his beautiful mentor. Upon entering, Li Mubai surveyed his surroundings. The room was devoid of unnecessary items, yet a subtle fragrance lingered in the air, reminiscent of the delicate aroma from Shui Qingyao's quarters. The mere thought of his alluring mentor's graceful figure ignited a fervor within him that it was hardly surprising that his resolve wavered. After all, Shui Qingyao was undeniably breathtaking, a beauty that could be likened to a celestial being. Although in his past life, Li Mubai had encountered numerous so-called beauties and celebrities, he found that in this world, even the most ordinary village girl surpassed them all. The two realms were fundamentally different. The inhabitants of this world were inherently nourished by the ethereal energies of heaven and earth, resulting in their superior physiques and appearances. For instance, the striking Lu Ruyan, despite her questionable character, was considered quite attractive amongst the disciples of Miao Miao Peak and the entire Taishian sect. Had her beauty been placed in his previous world, she would surely have been regarded as a goddess. Contemplating Lu Ruyan caused Li Mubai to clench his jaw in frustration. The wretched duo, Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan, had persistently bullied him, their disdainful gazes akin to viewing an insignificant insect. Particularly Lin Bufan, Li Mubai could never fathom what had provoked such animosity from him. Every encounter resulted in relentless humiliation. And today, they deceitfully claimed it was a summons from his master, only for him to discover that no such summons existed, that it appeared they merely intended to set him up for ridicule in front of Shui Qingyao. However, perhaps he owed them a debt of gratitude. After all, he had achieved his objective. The pink remote had successfully bonded with Shui Qingyao, and unexpectedly, he had been accepted as her personal disciple. This was not only due to Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan's antics, but also thanks to the unique physique bestowed upon him by the system. Although it seemed inconsequential at present, his acceptance as Shui Qingyao's disciple was largely attributable to this peculiar trait. After all, Shui Qingyao remained unaware of the true nature of his physique. With this thought, Li Mubai chuckled softly. Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufan, just you wait. I, Li Mubai, shall repay the humiliations of the past in kind. I am eager to witness the expressions on your faces upon learning of my status as a personal disciple. Meanwhile, Shui Qingyao, seated on her bed, was lost in thought, reflecting on the unexpected awakening of a special physique in a disciple she had casually accepted years ago. Why did it feel as though Li Mubai's physique possessed an unusual allure that drew her in? Moreover, the peculiar charm of his golden hair seemed to grow increasingly intriguing. Perhaps it was a unique aspect of his extraordinary nature. Pondering these matters, Shui Qingyao furrowed her brow that if this were indeed the case, it would imply that Li Mubai's physique was indeed remarkable. Even though her cultivation had been sealed, her foundation remained at the peak of the golden core stage, that if Li Mubai's newly awakened physique could influence her, what might become of it with further development? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Yet, she shook her head, dismissing the notion. Overthinking would yield little benefit. Her immediate concern was to resolve the issue of her sealed meridians and cultivation. After all, being unable to utilize her full powers was quite inconvenient. Just moments ago, she had found herself in a deep slumber, akin to a mere mortal, having shown no response when Li Mubai entered her chamber. This realization caused her cheeks to flush. For so many years, Li Mubai was the first male to enter her quarters, and he had witnessed her in a vulnerable state. Most troubling was the sensation she had felt prior to awakening. The distinct impression of someone touching her. Since Li Mubai was the only other person present, it was evident that he was the one who had made contact, that a mixture of embarrassment and indignation surged within her. In the adjacent room, Li Mubai had already settled cross-legged on his bed. This would be his temporary abode until the construction of his personal disciple's residence was completed. He felt no need for modesty. After all, there was little to arrange in his former quarters, consisting only of miscellaneous items and a pile of clothing. Thus, he did not intend to return to his previous living space to collect anything. The privileges of being a personal disciple rendered those trifles utterly inconsequential. Yet there was another pressing matter at hand. The heavenly artifact acquired through the system's signing-in process had been bound to his enchanting mentor. Failing to utilize it would be a grievous waste. This artifact was unique, as only he could wield it. In the hands of another, it would appear as nothing more than a trivial trinket, much like how Shui Qingyao had perceived it. Furthermore, using the artifact would eliminate all negative states afflicting the bonded individual while accelerating their cultivation for a period. This should address the issues plaguing his beautiful mentor. And most importantly, it would return a varying amount of cultivation to him. Li Mubai was eager to experience the nature of this restoration, suspecting that the higher the cultivation of the person he bound, the greater the amount returned to him. However, his assumptions could be flawed. Perhaps it would require further experimentation to discern the specifics of the restoration promised by the system, that he would never admit to harboring any peculiar thoughts, especially with the alluring figure of his mentor residing beside him, which only intensified the heat within his heart. Thus, with a focused intent, Li Mubai activated the heavenly artifact obtained from the system. Upon its use, he discovered that his spiritual energy had only slightly diminished. Truly, the artifacts acquired through the system were remarkable. Even a heavenly artifact seemed to impose minimal cost upon him, especially considering he had yet to reach the foundation establishment stage. Merely having entered the Qi gathering phase. If others were to learn that he, at this nascent stage, could wield a heavenly artifact, they would likely deem him insane. Such feats were deemed impossible in the realm of cultivation. Never had anyone heard of an ordinary person in the Qi gathering stage being able to use a heavenly artifact. In fact, it was generally believed that only those who had reached the foundation establishment stage could barely utilize magical artifacts. And even then, only the most rudimentary ones. Otherwise, the substantial spiritual energy required to activate such artifacts would swiftly drain a person dry. Meanwhile, as time passed, Shui Qingyao, deep in contemplation regarding her newly accepted personal disciple, suddenly sensed something amiss within her body. Despite being at the peak of the golden core stage, she found herself perplexed by the unexpected issues arising within her physique. Even with her meridians sealed, she possessed a solid foundation. So why had her body suddenly begun to malfunction? If it were any other concern, she might have sought assistance from her senior brothers or the elders of the sect. But how could she possibly ask for help with such a humiliating predicament? After all, it was already embarrassing enough to be a golden core cultivator with sealed meridians. Otherwise, she would not have remained on Miao Miao Peak for so long. As time went on, Li Mubai suddenly detected an unusual sensation within his own body. Upon the system bestowing upon him the Huangmao physique, he had already accomplished the infusion of qi into his body. And he could distinctly perceive the ethereal spiritual energy drifting through the cosmos. What remained was to draw more of this energy into his own being. Once his body's capacity for storing spiritual energy reached its zenith, he would be able to establish his foundation. This would usher him into a new realm, known as the foundation establishment stage. Upon reaching this stage, an individual's physique would undergo a profound transformation, with meridians entirely filled with spiritual energy, thereby enabling the practice of so-called spells. His physical limits would transcend those of an ordinary person, and his lifespan could be significantly prolonged. If, during the period of qi infusion, the energy within him could still be referred to as spiritual energy, then upon attaining the foundation establishment realm, it would necessitate a different nomenclature, perhaps spiritual power or magical energy. The journey from qi infusion to foundation establishment is undoubtedly a long and arduous process. After all, within the realm of cultivation, there exists a saying, 100 days to establish a foundation. Of course, this phrase pertains to those with superior aptitude, while those of lesser talent may never achieve such a state in their lifetime. The very concept of 100 days to establish a foundation underscores the formidable challenge of progressing from qi infusion to the realm of foundation establishment. Yet at this very moment, Li Mubai discovered that his internal spiritual energy was surging rapidly towards the 100 days foundation. During cultivation, spiritual energy must be drawn in gradually from the external environment. However, at this moment, it felt as though he possessed a spring of energy within himself, with an inexhaustible stream of spiritual energy fervently expanding his meridians. Simultaneously, the external spiritual energy began to converge rapidly around him. The peak of Piamiao Peak was already a place rich in spiritual energy, being the residence of Shui Qingyao at this moment. The energy diffusing in the air seemed to be attracted by some unseen force, gradually forming a vortex within the atmosphere that, in addition to the spiritual energy emanating from within him, the external energy began to fill Li Mubai's meridians at an astonishing pace. Chapter 14. Could I also possess a special physique? Sensing the transformation within his body, Li Mubai's eyes widened in astonishment. Could this be the cultivation return mentioned in the system's introduction? How utterly domineering! There was no need for him to engage in any cultivation. It was as if he had become a spring of spiritual energy, with this energy rapidly expanding within his meridians and effecting an unprecedented transformation upon his body. Additionally, the external spiritual energy was swiftly entering his being. In that instant, Li Mubai focused on stabilizing his mind, guiding the energy to flow rapidly through his meridians. The process of 100 days to establish a foundation is typically gradual, Yet Li Mubai felt that if this influx of energy continued, he might complete the foundation establishment in an extraordinarily short time. Reaching this realm of foundation establishment, he was uncertain, however, about the extent of the so-called cultivation return. Spiritual energy surged into Li Mubai's body like a gushing spring, with streams flowing joyously through his meridians, that he felt his body undergoing a remarkable metamorphosis, each cell becoming increasingly powerful under the nourishment of spiritual energy. That as the energy continued to pour in, Li Mubai sensed his aura growing stronger, as if a tremendous force were brewing within him. His heartbeat quickened, each pulse resonating with his very soul, that if someone were to witness this scene, they would surely be astounded. For Li Mubai's body was nearing the limits of qi infusion. Achieving such a feat in a mere instant is an impossibility for an ordinary person. Even those of formidable strength employing spiritual power to enhance their bodies would find it an arduous task, as they must also consider whether the recipient's body can withstand it. After all, the infusion of spiritual energy can be perilous. A single misstep might lead to catastrophic consequences. That Li Mubai had somewhat underestimated his Huangmao physique, as the system had provided no detailed explanation regarding it, merely stating that this physique tends to endear itself to women. However, it lacked further elaboration in other respects, leading Li Mubai to believe that the system's bestowed heavenly treasure was simply astonishing. Concurrently, he felt a vortex within his dantian, continuously rotating, drawing the spiritual energy inward. As the energy accumulated, the vortex's speed intensified, as if it sought to absorb Li Mubai's very soul. That he felt his consciousness beginning to blur, as if he were being drawn into another realm by the vortex. That he fought to maintain clarity, persistently guiding the energy into his dantian. The formation of a vortex within the dantian is one of the clearest indicators of achieving the foundation establishment realm. Yet, at this moment, Li Mubai sensed no obstruction, as if everything were unfolding effortlessly. All he needed to do was offer a gentle nudge in the right direction. Suddenly, a powerful surge of energy erupted from his dantian, enveloping him in a radiant aura that he felt as though his soul had merged with the cosmos, resonating with the universe. Even his awareness became exceptionally lucid at that moment, as if he could comprehend the mysteries of all existence. This profound and enigmatic state was something he had never experienced before. When the light dissipated, Li Mubai had successfully established his foundation. His aura had transformed, as if he were reborn. The foundation establishment realm has been achieved. I have become a Taoist master. In that instant, Li Mubai's heart swelled with exhilaration. He had completed the 100 days foundation in a single day. No, to be precise, he had not even taken a full day. It had merely taken him a brief moment. The cultivation return was utterly extraordinary. Following Li Mubai's attainment of the foundation establishment realm, the spring of spiritual energy within him began to gradually dissipate, and the external vortex of energy slowly dispersed as well. That it was as if it had never existed at all. He took a moment to assess his body. Is this what the foundation establishment realm feels like? It is simply magnificent. The vortex of spiritual energy within the dantian continued to swirl, autonomously absorbing the external energy. Once this energy entered his body, it would transform into spiritual power or magical energy. This meant he could now learn spells. At this thought, Li Mubai's heart raced with excitement. After years of being a mere servant disciple on Piaomiao Peak, he had finally awaited his moment of glory. Lin Bufan, Lu Ruyan, just wait until you see me again. Not only have I achieved foundation establishment, but I have also become a direct disciple. I can hardly wait to witness your expressions upon our next meeting. Meanwhile, in the adjacent area, Shui Qingyao appeared unusually flustered, her complexion flushed, even her once pale skin taking on a rosy hue. Beads of sweat adorned her forehead, and her hair appeared slightly damp. Despite being a golden core cultivator, she seemed utterly drained, slumped in her spot. Shui Qingyao was utterly bewildered by the turn of events. Yet in the next moment, she sensed something amiss. The seals within her meridian seemed to have entirely lifted, and her sensitivity to the spiritual energy of heaven and earth had markedly sharpened, a state she had never experienced before. In an instant, Shui Qingyao began to circulate her spiritual energy, regaining her full golden core cultivation without any issues, her body feeling better than ever. Moreover, her heightened sensitivity to the spiritual energy of the world could accelerate her cultivation. For a moment, Shui Qingyao found it hard to believe. Did she also possess some sort of special physique? The thought flitted through her mind, as she considered whether such a unique physique might reveal itself under certain conditions. Undoubtedly, Shui Qingyao's imagination was quite vivid, especially considering that Li Mubai's heavenly treasure had another effect. It could enhance the cultivation speed of the recipient for a period after its conclusion. However, Shui Qingyao was oblivious to this fact. She could not fathom what had just transpired, let alone the notion of accelerated cultivation. Moreover, with Li Mubai awakening a special physique, Shui Qingyao's mind began to entertain a bold hypothesis, that she might also possess a unique physique. Staring blankly at her hands, she recalled her previous actions, her face flushing crimson, wishing she could find a crevice to hide in. Yet, the reality was that this had indeed transpired, even if it were a special physique. The nature of such a condition was rather difficult to articulate. At this moment, Shui Qingyao felt none of the exhilaration that might accompany the discovery of a potential special physique. Instead, she was engulfed in a profound sense of embarrassment and indignation. Chapter 15. Foundation Established. Just as Shui Qingyao was consumed by her overwhelming embarrassment, she suddenly sensed a fluctuation of spiritual energy emanating from next door. Although she could not ascertain the cause of her own condition, she recognized one undeniable benefit. Her meridian seals had been unsealed. Moreover, her cultivation at the perfect golden core stage has returned entirely. Although she could not fathom how this had occurred, Shui Qingyao had no time for further contemplation. For the distinct fluctuations of spiritual energy emanating from the next room clearly indicated that someone had successfully established their foundation. This revelation filled her with astonishment, and despite her own pressing concerns, she could not ignore the heightened sensitivity she felt towards the spiritual energies of the universe. Nevertheless, Shui Qingyao refrained from entering a state of meditation, understanding that aside from herself, there was only one other occupant in the palace, her newly accepted disciple. Li Mubai. As she sensed the surges of energy from the foundation establishment, her heart raced in disbelief. How could Li Mubai, who had only just begun to absorb qi into his body, complete his foundation so rapidly? Such fluctuations could not be fabricated. Could it be that Li Mubai possessed an exceptionally formidable constitution? Having just awakened a unique physical trait, he had effortlessly transitioned from qi absorption to foundation establishment? At this thought, Shui Qingyao felt an unexpected dryness in her throat, uncertain whether it stemmed from her shock at Li Mubai's prowess or from her earlier experiences. Reflecting on the time it took her to progress from qi absorption to foundation establishment, was it not 30 days? To establish a foundation in 100 days, she had accomplished it in merely 30. Back then, she had been regarded as a genius in the Taishan sect. But what of Li Mubai now? She had scarcely entrusted him with the Taishan Heart Sutra, and he had already completed his foundation. This was no mere talent. It was a monstrous anomaly. Lost in these thoughts, Shui Qingyao entirely forgot her earlier concerns and headed directly to Li Mubai's quarters. Li Mubai had chosen the room adjacent to hers, and at the moment his meridians were opened, he had comprehended the situation. After all, for someone at the perfect golden core stage like himself, the entirety of Piamiao Peak held no secrets. Yet the proximity of their rooms felt somewhat too intimate that a slight flush crept onto Shui Qingyao's cheeks, for it was the first time an opposite sex occupied the room next to hers. Especially one for whom she held a special sentiment. Just moments ago, as her body experienced unusual sensations, the image of Li Mubai had inexplicably surfaced in her mind, particularly his striking golden hair, which seemed to stand out vividly in her imagination. Accompanying the strange sensations in her body were some indescribable visions that had also materialized in her mind, with Li Mubai as the focal point. This left Shui Qingyao feeling rather unsettled. While Li Mubai was undeniably handsome, he was still her disciple. What could possibly be happening to her that she would awaken such feelings for her own student? Realizing this, Shui Qingyao suddenly sensed that her body was behaving oddly again. Hastily, she extended a hand to perform a calming technique, clearing her mind of those peculiar thoughts while simultaneously executing a cleansing spell to rid herself of the uncomfortable stickiness that clung to her. Such techniques were merely minor spells, simple applications of one's spiritual energy. Though uncomplicated, they provided significant assistance in daily life. As a cultivator, much of her time was devoted to practice, leading to the development of numerous small spells designed to facilitate everyday living. Techniques like the fire summoning spell or the water summoning spell could all be cultivated upon reaching the foundation establishment stage, and these minor spells were hardly secrets within the cultivation world. Nearly everyone could learn them. After tidying herself up, Shui Qingyao arrived at Li Mubai's door, initially intending to burst in unannounced. However, after a moment's hesitation, she gently knocked. Meanwhile, Li Mubai was marveling at the prowess of the pink remote control, which had miraculously returned his cultivation to the foundation establishment stage. That a peculiar thought flickered through his mind. If he continued using the pink remote, would his cultivation continue to soar? Yet, he quickly dismissed this notion. Upon binding the pink remote, he had understood its operational limits. Although he could connect with multiple individuals, each could only use it once a day. Therefore, he would have to wait until tomorrow to utilize it on Shui Qingyao again. Despite these limitations, the power of this system's sign-in rewards was undeniable. Although merely an auxiliary cultivation artifact, it was impressively potent. As Li Mubai reveled in the peculiar sensations within his body, a sudden knock at the door startled him. Realizing he was in Shui Qingyao's palace, he deduced that the only person who would come looking for him was her. To his surprise, this beautiful master of his displayed a commendable sense of decorum. A cultivator at the perfect golden core stage, she still remembered to knock. Moreover, a strange feeling welled up within him, for he was acutely aware of what had just transpired. Now that his cultivation had been restored, it implied that Shui Qingyao must have reached some indescribable state. Why didn't she come to find him right away? Did she sense something amiss? Yet that seemed implausible. The pink remote was a divine artifact from the system, and even a higher-level cultivator would likely remain oblivious to any issues. After pondering for a moment, Li Mubai quickly got out of bed and opened the door. Indeed, standing before him was Shui Qingyao, and he noticed the delicate blush gracing her exquisite features. "Master, what brings you here?" "Oh, it's nothing, that I merely sensed the fluctuations of spiritual energy from your room and wanted to check on you." "Have you completed your foundation?" Although Shui Qingyao maintained a calm facade, her heart was tumultuous. Her disciple was truly a prodigy, achieving foundation establishment in less than a day. Moreover, Shui Qingyao is currently filled with an insatiable curiosity towards Li Mubai. Previously, due to the sealing of her meridians, she was unable to explore Li Mubai's unique constitution. However, now that her cultivation has returned, she is eager to investigate his peculiarities. Although she is uncertain about the reasons behind her regained abilities, she is at least able to delve into the study of Li Mubai's physique. The mere thought of the cause of her restored powers causes her cheeks to flush as she recalls the unusual sensations that had recently manifested in her body, followed by her audacious actions that if this truly is a special constitution, then her own must be quite shameless. Furthermore, she had just fantasized about her disciple, and now finds herself in a secluded space with him. Unable to suppress her thoughts, Shui Qingyao lets out a soft "Teeth." "Master, why are you making that sound?" Li Mubai, perplexed, cannot fathom why his beautiful master suddenly appears so bashful, her complexion excessively flushed. Could it be that she is recalling their earlier encounter? Upon hearing his question, Shui Qingyao feels a flicker of panic and hastily shakes her head, pushing away the peculiar thoughts swirling in her mind. No, I was merely reflecting on certain matters. It has nothing to do with you. My previous physical issues have now been resolved, and I shall soon provide you with the benefits of being my direct disciple. Additionally, I can assist you in examining your own body to ensure there are no other issues with your constitution." Observing Shui Qingyao's feigned composure, Li Mubai cannot help but smile inwardly. After all, her physical problems were resolved due to him. Had it not been for his pink remote control, she might have been bedridden for much longer. Nevertheless, he is curious about the benefits that come with being her direct disciple, especially since he currently possesses nothing. Now, he might even be considered a genius in Shui Qingyao's eyes, so surely the benefits will be substantial. As Shui Qingyao walks further into the room, Li Mubai trails half a step behind her, standing at her side, but he finds himself unable to resist admiring her figure. Previously, when he first encountered her, she was lying in bed, thus he lacked an intuitive sense of her form. Now, however, standing before him, he can observe her closely. One must concede that Shui Qingyao's physique is truly remarkable. Perhaps it is due to her excellent foundation or her cultivation. In any case, she appears nearly perfect in every aspect. Her grace is as delicate as willow catkins, with every movement exuding boundless elegance. Her slender waist, barely fitting within a single grasp, seems as if it could be snapped by a gentle breeze, yet remains resilient like bamboo, showcasing the unique beauty of feminine flexibility. Her shoulders are smooth, the lines flowing seamlessly, her garments lightly clinging to her skin, accentuating an alluring silhouette. Her long legs, partially concealed beneath her skirt, exude an enchanting charm with every step she takes. Those legs resemble a sculptor's masterpiece, straight and proportionate, their skin glistening like pearls under the sun. Her slender ankles convey an unintended allure, sparking boundless imagination that Mubai feels that whether in his past life or this one, he has always had a weakness for beautiful legs. Particularly when he beholds such splendid ones, he finds himself momentarily immobilized. With Shui Qingyao's legs, not only could he admire them for a year, but perhaps even for millennia without growing weary. One cannot deny that cultivators possess an extraordinary allure, their physiques often bordering on perfection. At this moment, Li Mubai is lost in thought, oblivious to a crucial detail. Shui Qingyao is, after all, a fully realized golden core cultivator, and her earlier physical issues have been entirely rectified, her powers restored. Therefore, she is acutely aware of Li Mubai's subtle movements, the fleeting glances, and his gaze fixated upon her legs. Chapter 17. Do I look good, master? Shui Qingyao, unbeknownst to herself, feels a peculiar thrill upon sensing Li Mubai's gaze. Instead of feeling any disgust, she experiences a touch of delight, especially when she perceives his attention lingering on her legs, stirring a flutter within her heart. What are you looking at? Ah, nothing. Li Mubai hastily diverts his gaze, instantly adopting an air of utmost seriousness, refusing to glance sideways. Seeing his slightly flustered demeanor, Shui Qingyao suddenly feels that her new disciple possesses a certain charm. Do I look good, master? Without understanding why, she finds herself asking Li Mubai this seemingly trivial question. Upon realizing her own words, she questions her own thoughts. What has come over her? Why has her composure faltered since encountering him? Ah, Li Mubai is momentarily taken aback. What kind of question is that? Why would Shui Qingyao suddenly inquire about her looks? Could it be that she discovered him sneaking a glance? What exactly does this beautiful master intend? Should he compliment her beauty or downplay it? Cough, cough. Of course, you are beautiful, master. Your beauty shines like the brightest star in the heavens, illuminating this mundane world. Your visage resembles pear blossoms blooming in early spring, pure, flawless, and refreshingly unique, captivating all who behold it. Your grace is akin to the snow lotus atop Tianshan, pristine and noble, evoking reverence that dissuades casual disrespect. After a brief pause, Li Mubai recites his flattery, as if reciting a lesson. Regardless of Shui Qingyao's true intentions, she is, after all, a woman. When a woman asks whether she is beautiful, it is not a question open to debate. One simply must affirm her beauty. Stop. Stop. Where did you learn all this? Shui Qingyao's cheeks flush as she regards Li Mubai's earnest expressions. Truth be told, she finds herself rather pleased. After all, no woman dislikes being complimented on her beauty, not even a formidable golden core cultivator like herself. Master, everything I said comes from the heart, Li Mubai asserts, gazing directly into her eyes. All right, I understand. For reasons unknown, Shui Qingyao feels that Li Mubai's gaze is unusually fervent, a heat she finds difficult to withstand. Especially since just moments prior, she had considered her disciple as an object of fantasy. This further complicates her ability to meet his gaze, prompting her to hastily avert her eyes. What is happening? Why is her heart in such disarray? Since beginning her cultivation, she has never encountered such turmoil. Could it be that Li Mubai possesses some form of enchantment? No. If this continues, her resolve as a cultivator may truly falter. Shui Qingyao, you must remain clear-headed. This Li Mubai is your disciple, your newly accepted direct disciple. Desperate to regain her composure, she mentally chastises herself. Turning to a nearby table, she seats herself, observing Li Mubai standing beside her. For reasons unknown, Shui Qingyao instinctively reaches for her skirt, subtly adjusting its slit, an action she herself cannot comprehend. Yet it recalls Li Mubai's earlier focus on her legs. Cough, cough. She discreetly tidies the slit of her skirt, allowing more of her fair legs to be exposed. After completing this action, Shui Qingyao discreetly glances at Li Mubai. However, the next moment, her brow furrows slightly. This infuriating boy was so bold when he was sneaking glances earlier. Why now does he feign such solemnity? Humph. If he no longer wishes to look, then so be it. Li Mubai, of course, remains oblivious to Shui Qingyao's thoughts, completely unaware of her subtle movements at this moment. He is focused, eyes firmly ahead, contemplating nothing but the present that is not entirely Li Mubai's fault for his timidity. After all, he himself does not fully grasp the terrifying power of his unique constitution. Nor does he understand Shui Qingyao's true nature. Having likely been discovered during his earlier peaking, he is cautious about provoking her further. After all, he is merely a foundation-level cultivator in the presence of a golden core master. He is akin to an ant that could be effortlessly crushed. Having only just embarked on his cultivation journey and bound to a system, the thought of being crushed by his beautiful master due to a moment of indiscretion seems profoundly unjust. Observing that Li Mubai showed no intent to steal glances at her, Shui Qingyao found the situation somewhat dull. She gently extended a hand, upon which rested a ring of ancient design, adorned with a crystalline gem at its center, an object known as a spatial ring. Li Mubai took note of Shui Qingyao's movement. His attention piqued. Surely, this was the legendary spatial ring. What a remarkable artifact. One could only wonder about the vastness of the space contained within it, and the principles governing such a phenomenon. When might he also possess a spatial ring of his own? Alas, it seemed unlikely in the near future, considering the rarity of such items in the realm of cultivation. Most ordinary cultivators relied on storage bags, which, while functional, lacked the elegance and convenience of a ring, and the internal spaces of storage bags were vastly inferior by comparison. Noticing Li Mubai's gaze, Shui Qingyao assumed he was unaware of the spatial ring's capabilities and proceeded to explain. This is called a spatial ring. Its interior forms a unique space that can be used to store items. You can imprint it with your own spiritual energy, and once imprinted, it can only be accessed by you. Of course, if someone possesses sufficient strength, they could still open it, or they might use magical power to erase the imprint left on the ring. However, such actions are far from simple. Should the ring's space be invaded by magical energy, you will be immediately alerted. So unless the one who left the imprint is deceased, outsiders cannot access the items within. As she spoke, Shui Qingyao's other hand delicately brushed over the ring, causing the crystalline gem to emit a dazzling light, which instantaneously revealed several items upon the table. Chapter 18. The rich woman's treasure chest. Li Mubai felt little interest in the items Shui Qingyao retrieved from the ring. He had a fair guess as to what they were. After all, having just become a direct disciple, these items were likely the perks afforded to such disciples. After years of serving as a menial disciple on the mysterious peak, he had heard whispers of the benefits enjoyed by direct disciples, tokens proving their identity. Elixirs to aid in cultivation, spirit stones, and perhaps some ordinary magical tools. Truthfully, he found these items unremarkable, for he possessed an advantage of his own. What captivated him was the spatial ring itself. He was curious about its research and origins, and what principles lay behind it. That he had seen storage bags before, merely large, unattractive sacks, nowhere near as appealing as this spatial ring. When might he ever acquire a spatial ring of his own? At that moment, Shui Qingyao also noticed Li Mubai's intense focus on the ring, leading her to wonder if he was particularly fascinated by it. Do you have a fondness for spatial rings? She inquired. Of course, master. Who wouldn't he? A storage bag is cumbersome and unattractive, and its internal space cannot compare to that of a spatial ring. Shui Qingyao chuckled softly at his earnestness. She could not deny that Li Mubai's words held a ring of truth. However, spatial rings were indeed scarce, and crafting one was not nearly as straightforward as making a storage bag. Even a simple spatial ring commanded an exorbitant price. Since you like it, I shall give you one, she declared as she spoke. Shui Qingyao again reached out, her fingers gliding over the ring, revealing another that appeared slightly antiquated, adorned with a diamond-shaped crystal and crafted from an unknown metal. Li Mubai was momentarily taken aback. What? I said. Since you like it, I shall give you one. Is there a problem? Do you not want it? I want it, of course I want it, but isn't this quite valuable? Shui Qingyao shot him an exasperated glance. You re-aware of its value now? Yet, all 5 of your senior sisters possess one. so it wouldn't be fair of me to treat you differently. While it is merely an ordinary spatial ring, its internal space should suffice for your needs. Before Shui Qingyao could finish her sentence, Li Mubai, acting like a rogue, swiftly snatched the ring from her hand and slipped it onto his middle finger, twisting it left and right with a fluid motion. Thank you, master. Well, your speed is certainly remarkable. The spatial ring is yours now. Let us turn our attention to the other items that at this juncture. Li Mubai shifted his focus to the various objects on the table, while Shui Qingyao began to elucidate further. This is the token for direct disciples. It grants you unfettered access throughout the mysterious peak and the entire Taishan sect. Additionally, you may collect your monthly resources for cultivation using this token. It also serves as a symbol of your identity, so take care not to lose it. As Shui Qingyao spoke, Li Mubai examined the token, noticing the characters mysterious engraved on one side, with a depiction of the mysterious peak on the reverse. Understood, master, that I will remember your instructions. Seeing that Li Mubai had absorbed her words, Shui Qingyao nodded and continued introducing the other items on the table. This elixir is called the Foundation Establishment Pill. It assists cultivators in completing their foundation establishment. While you may not need it at present, every direct disciple receives one, just as your 5 senior sisters did. Therefore, this pill is also yours, and how you choose to use it is entirely at your discretion. Li Mubai nodded in acknowledgement. Although he had no immediate use for the pill, he recognized its potential value, as many spent their lives striving for foundation establishment, that it was indeed a privilege to be a direct disciple. He recalled that it was rumored Lu Ruyan had even gone so far as to align herself with Lin Bufan, sacrificing her dignity for the sake of obtaining a foundation establishment pill. If she were to learn of his effortless acquisition of one, he couldn't help but wonder what expression would grace her face. Shui Qingyao continued without pause, introducing Li Mubai to the remaining items. His gaze settled on a small sword, approximately 10 centimeters in length, which appeared exquisitely crafted, adorned with flame-like patterns that Li Mubai speculated that this small sword was likely a magical tool. Otherwise, it would serve little purpose for Shui Qingyao to gift it to him. His thoughts were soon confirmed by her words. This flying sword is called the Qi Shao sword. It is part of my collection, a profound-ranked magical tool. Now that you have reached the foundation establishment stage, you may learn to fly using the sword. As long as your internal spiritual energy is ample, you can ride the sword by imprinting it with your energy, allowing it to change size at your will. Li Mubai's heart swelled with astonishment upon hearing Shui Qingyao's introduction. Truly, his beautiful master was a wealthy woman. To simply bestow upon him a profound-ranked magical tool was no small feat. It seemed that other direct disciples might not enjoy such generosity. Being the daughter of the previous sect leader, it was likely that Shui Qingyao's treasure trove held many more wonders. Perhaps one day, he would win her heart, and this treasure trove would become his own. At that moment, Li Mubai's thoughts wandered to the prospect of claiming both his master and her treasures for himself. In addition, Shui Qingyao elaborated on other items, including several basic spells, given that Li Mubai had only just entered the foundation establishment stage. More advanced spells would be as inscrutable to him as ancient texts, so Shui Qingyao focused on foundational teachings. Chapter 19. Am I being supported? Since the celestial grade artifacts can be obtained through the signing-in system, it is highly probable that techniques and spells can also be acquired in a similar manner. The items obtained from the system sign-in can save one an immense amount of time, much like the pink remote control from before, which could be easily utilized even by oneself despite being a celestial grade artifact, that if it were techniques or spells, perhaps acquiring them through signing in would allow for effortless comprehension and mastery. After Water Qingyao introduced these items, only 10 stones remained on the table. These were not ordinary stones. Li Mubai recognized them as spirit stones. Indeed, these 10 stones, radiating a white glow and containing extraordinarily pure spiritual energy, were indeed spirit stones. However, Li Mubai felt that these 10 spirit stones were somewhat different from those he had encountered before. Although he had previously been a servant disciple, he had still seen spirit stones. They housed highly refined spiritual energy, which cultivators could utilize for their practice, making the absorption of energy from spirit stones far more efficient than drawing from the natural world. Yet the spirit stones he had seen before did not possess the same crystalline clarity as the 10 before him. And even the spiritual energy fluctuations within them were on an entirely different level. Master, are these spirit stones? Li Mubai inquired, glancing from the spirit stones on the table to Water Qingyao seated before him. Upon hearing his question, Water Qingyao gently nodded. Indeed, I previously thought you might not recognize this item, considering you were merely a servant disciple, that I did not expect you to have some knowledge. Haha. Master, although I was a servant disciple, I have spent many years at Piaomiao Peak, so I have acquired some knowledge. However, I am somewhat puzzled. These spirit stones seem different from those I am accustomed to. Hearing Li Mubai's words, Water Qingyao merely smiled softly that of course they are different. The ones you are familiar with are likely just low-grade spirit stones. Spirit stones are classified at a low-grade, mid-grade, high-grade, and top-grade. The ones before you are indeed top-grade spirit stones. Upon hearing this, Li Mubai's breath quickened. Spirit stones could essentially be considered currency in the cultivation world, akin to gold and silver in the mundane realm. Beyond their monetary value, they could also facilitate cultivation. For instance, in Piaomiao Peak, inner disciples could receive 10 low-grade spirit stones each month, while direct disciples could claim 10 mid-grade spirit stones per month. Though both receive 10 stones, the disparity is immense. One mid-grade spirit stone could be exchanged for 10 low-grade spirit stones. Furthermore, one high-grade spirit stone could be traded for 10 mid-grade spirit stones, and the same applies to top-grade spirit stones. Which means that the 10 top-grade spirit stones before him equate to a staggering 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. This is an astronomical figure. An ordinary inner disciple could only claim 10 low-grade spirit stones a month, accumulating a mere 120 over a year, which is only equivalent to 12 mid-grade spirit stones. If an inner disciple wished to acquire spirit stones worth 10 top-grade stones, they would need to labor for 83 years. Yet now, he had effortlessly obtained what would take an ordinary inner disciple 83 years to amass. Of course, this is not a straightforward calculation, as the resources allocated by the sect are akin to subsistence allowances. Merely sufficient to meet basic cultivation needs. One must elevate their status to gain access to more resources. After all, a cultivator can amass wealth through various means, and those relying solely on the sect's meager provisions are unlikely to achieve any significant accomplishments. Nevertheless, at this moment, Li Mubai's heart soared with excitement, for this was the largest fortune he had encountered since arriving in this cultivation world. Moreover, a peculiar thought surfaced in his mind. Why did he feel somewhat as if he were being supported? Akin to how wealthy women in his past life would casually bestow hundreds of thousands to keep a young man. Or like Uncle Da, who directly received a premium credit card. Could it be that he was being kept? Or were the other direct disciples receiving similar treatment? However, even direct disciples could only claim 10 mid-grade spirit stones monthly. These 10 top-grade spirit stones were indeed astonishing. Master, are these for me? Li Mubai's expression of shock did not escape Water Qingyao's notice. She too was uncertain about her own feelings, but seeing Li Mubai's astonishment brought her joy. Moreover, she felt a peculiar warmth in her heart. After all, he was her youngest disciple and her only male disciple. And she was not averse to supporting him, in fact. Her surprise was not unfounded. Previously, when Water Qingyao had taken on direct disciples, she had only offered 10 high-grade spirit stones as a token gift. Yet, when she retrieved the spirit stones just now, she had inexplicably presented 10 top-grade spirit stones. Even Water Qingyao herself was unclear about the reason for her actions, but she rationalized it as a form of compensation for her fantasies during those indescribable moments. After all, as a master, it was somewhat embarrassing to view one's disciple as an object of fantasy. Although Li Mubai was unaware, he could consider these 10 top-grade spirit stones a form of recompense. Indeed, you have become my direct disciple, so I ought to present you with a token of our first meeting. Please accept it. For some reason, Li Mubai felt that Water Qingyao's cheeks flushed slightly as she spoke. Almost bashfully, meanwhile, as Li Mubai reveled in the joy of being supported, Lin Bufon's residents saw the conclusion of a chaotic tussle between Lu Ruyan and Lin Bufon. Observing Lin Bufon's somewhat pale complexion, Lu Ruyan's eyes flickered with disdain. What a waste! If it weren't for the foundation-building pill, how could I ever look at someone as useless as you? Truly, both unappealing and ineffectual. Though Lu Ruyan thought this, she did not outwardly express it. Chapter 20. Profound and extensive, generously imparted. Lu Ruyan leaned closer to Lin Bufon, showering him with flattery, which made Lin Bufon feel an immense sense of satisfaction. even believing he was a true man thanks to her praise. Yet Lin Bufan remained blissfully unaware of Lu Ruyan's true thoughts. Strangely, Lu Ruyan's mind wandered to Li Mubai, whom she had just toyed with. Though merely a servant disciple, Li Mubai's physique and appearance far surpassed Lin Bufan's. Perhaps in the future, she might indeed wish to sample the flavor of Li Mubai. At least he appeared far superior to Lin Bufan, though she was uncertain about his prowess in other aspects. Rest assured, junior sister, I will soon request a foundation-building pill from my father, ensuring your successful transition into the foundation-building realm. While Lu Ruyan contemplated when she might sample Li Mubai, she heard Lin Bufan whispering in her ear that a hint of contempt flickered within her. Yet she maintained a cheerful demeanor. In that case, thank you, senior brother, it's just that my physical strength is somewhat inadequate at present, being merely at the stage of chi induction. Once I successfully transition into the foundation-building realm, I will be sure to serve you well. Haha. Then it is settled. At this moment, Li Mubai remained blissfully unaware that a woman had taken an interest in his appearance, even contemplating tasting him, and that this woman was none other than Lu Ruyan, who had tormented him during this time. In Water Qingyao's palace, within Li Mubai's quarters, she sensed something was off with her disciple upon realizing he was aware that the 10 spirit stones were top grade. 10 top-grade spirit stones were indeed a significant amount, yet was it truly worthy of such a reaction? Li Mubai's eyes sparkled as he gazed at the 10 top-grade spirit stones on the table, his pupils nearly transforming into the shape of spirit stones, and a wide grin spread across his face as he chuckled foolishly, saliva nearly pooling at the corners of his mouth. Li Mubai, what has come over you? Have you lost your senses? It's merely 10 top-grade spirit stones. Is it truly worthy of such a transformation? Master, it's nothing. I was just momentarily overwhelmed with surprise that I never expected you to gift me such a grand present. I am at a loss for how to express my gratitude. Please rest assured, I will endeavor to deepen my cultivation to repay you and generously impart my knowledge. Listening to the peculiar laughter of Li Mubai, accompanied by his jumbled words, Shui Qingyao gazed at him with wide eyes, perplexed. Having not been exposed to the influences of modern culture, she failed to comprehend the deeper implications of the idioms Li Mubai had just uttered. She merely assumed that he was overly delighted and had begun to speak nonsensically. Idioms are not meant to be used in such a manner. Their profoundness should not be trivialized in this context. Moreover, what do you mean by saying you are bestowing everything upon me? Even if one were to bestow, it should be the master imparting wisdom to the disciple. You, my dear fellow, are utterly uneducated. Beyond your cultivation, you ought to pay more attention to learning about culture. Otherwise, how could you not embarrass your master? In that laugh of yours, it would be best to refrain from such expressions in the future. It sounds exceedingly strange and gives the impression that you may not be a good person. Our Taishan sect is a reputable and righteous sect. We hold some renown across the southern regions. As a direct disciple, you cannot be seen cackling away like that. As Shui Qingyao spoke, Li Mubai struggled to suppress his amusement. His beautiful master was simply too adorable, claiming to be bestowing wisdom upon him. Did she truly possess such knowledge? Yes, Master is absolutely correct that I was a bit carried away earlier. Your teachings are engraved in my heart, and I shall diligently pursue cultural learning from now on. Well then, I shall take my leave for now. I may have to step out for a while, which could take some time. You may begin to search for a location to construct your dwelling on Piaomiao Peak, and then proceed to the sect to collect resources with your disciple token. Master, you are going out. Upon hearing that Shui Qingyao would be leaving and might be delayed, Li Mubai grew somewhat anxious. After all, his pink remote control relied on Shui Qingyao. He could use it daily, but what if she ventured too far and he could not utilize it? He was uncertain if the remote had any range limitations. Indeed, I must step out. Last time, I suffered some setbacks at the hands of a demonic beast, which resulted in issues with my body. Now that I have fully recovered, I intend to reclaim what I lost. As Shui Qingyao spoke, a glimmer of killing intent flickered in her eyes. The last time, she had nearly suffered a grave defeat at the hands of that demonic beast. Had it not been for her hidden cards, she might not have returned at all. However, that beast was not faring well either. It had sustained severe injuries under her command. Now that she was completely restored, she was determined to slay it. Understanding this, Li Mubai realized that Shui Qingyao's injury, even the sealing of her meridians, was likely the doing of that unknown beast. However, he could not prevent Shui Qingyao from leaving. He would wait until tomorrow to see what transpired. After all, he could not use the pink remote on her today, and if she had not returned by tomorrow, perhaps he could explore whether the remote could be used at a distance. Yet, a sense of worry lingered in Li Mubai's heart. What if he used the pink remote while Shui Qingyao was battling the beast? Would that not inadvertently assist the creature? What are you pondering now? Shui Qingyao observed Li Mubai, seemingly lost in thought. Nothing much. I wish you victory, master. May you vanquish that demonic beast. At his words, Shui Qingyao burst into laughter. You are speaking nonsense again. What do you mean by vanquishing the beast beneath the horse? That beast cannot ride a horse. How could it be slain in such a manner? Realizing his faux pas, Li Mubai felt a bit embarrassed and could only offer a sheepish smile that in any case, when my master sets out. She is worth two. That detestable beast is surely doomed. Very well, I shall take your auspicious words to heart. Shui Qingyao suddenly found her newly taken disciple rather amusing, though he seemed somewhat lacking in cultural knowledge. His words were quite entertaining. Moreover, she felt a sense of relaxation when conversing with Li Mubai. Chapter 21. Second senior sister Ren Huaxia. Without lingering too long with Li Mubai, Shui Qingyao departed. Her mind singularly focused on avenging herself against the demonic beast, just as Li Mubai had earlier suggested. After she left, Li Mubai found himself at a loss for what to do. He first stored all of Shui Qingyao's gifts into his spatial ring, and then grew somewhat bored. Flipping through the simple spells he had. These basic spells were still worth practicing, as they would greatly facilitate daily life. As for locating a cave, dwelling, or palace to construct, Li Mubai felt no urgency. After all, living next to his beautiful master was quite delightful. Why rush to move out? He was genuinely intrigued by these simple spells, practicing for half a day without difficulty. Whether it was due to the simplicity of the spells or his own decent aptitude after acquiring the Huangmao physique, he found the practice quite manageable. Having mastered basic spells like the cleansing technique, fireball technique, and waterball technique, he could now execute them effortlessly. However, sword flight remained somewhat challenging, yet Li Mubai was not in a hurry. Master, your disciple seeks an audience. Just as Li Mubai was engrossed in studying the sword flight technique, a soft and delicate voice echoed from outside the palace. This voice interrupted his training and piqued his curiosity. It was nearly evening. Who could be seeking his master? Opening the palace door, he stepped outside. Who are you? How dare you be at my master's residence? Upon opening the grand door, both he and the woman outside were momentarily taken aback. The woman frowned upon seeing Li Mubai, while he, upon gazing at her, was momentarily stunned. She possessed graceful shoulders, her silhouette both delicate and strong. Her slender waist and exquisite curves formed a perfect S shape. And her long, straight legs were tall and elegant. Her countenance was refreshingly unique, her features as refined as a meticulously crafted painting, with large, expressive eyes that momentarily captivated Li Mubai. Seeing Li Mubai staring intently at her, Ren Huaxia swiftly drew her sword from her waist, pointing it at him. You scoundrel! Who are you, and why are you at my master's residence? Sister, you seem to have misunderstood that I am Li Mubai, the newly accepted direct disciple of the esteemed Piao Fairy. Shui Qingyao, look, I have the disciple token here. As he spoke, he produced the token. Since this woman referred to Shui Qingyao as master, he assumed it would be appropriate to address her as sister, and she was likely one of his 5 senior sisters. A flicker of doubt crossed Ren Huaxia's face as she glanced at the token in Li Mubai's hand, that a new direct disciple of the master. I have never heard of such a thing. It is not surprising that you haven't heard that I was only recently accepted as a direct disciple. Before that, I was merely a servant disciple of Piao Peak, a servant disciple. Indeed. Then why would the master accept you as a direct disciple? Perhaps it is due to my handsome appearance. With a swift motion, her sword once again pointed at Li Mubai. Scoundrel! Do not speak nonsense, sister. Please lower your sword. Allow me to explain. Li Mubai recounted the events leading to his acceptance as a direct disciple. And only then did Ren Huaxia relax her guard. After all, the disciple token was not something that could be easily forged at I see that in that case, calling me sister is perfectly acceptable. My name is Ren Huaxia, the second direct disciple of our master. Disciple Li Mubai pays his respects to second senior sister. Having sensed the fluctuations of spiritual energy emanating from Ren Huaxia, Li Mubai regrettably found himself unable to detect anything. indicating that his second senior sister's cultivation vastly surpassed his own. This was only natural, given that she was his second senior sister and he was still at the initial stage of foundation building. It would be strange if her cultivation were not higher than his AT that moment. Ren Huaxia scrutinized Li Mubai from head to toe. She could not help but admit that her little junior brother was quite handsome, exuding an indescribable charm, especially with his head of yellow hair, which for some reason she found quite appealing. Noticing Li Mubai's respectful demeanor, she waved her hand dismissively. Enough, enough. We are all direct disciples of the master. You need not be so formal. By the way, where is the master? Second senior sister. Master just stepped out. That Li Mubai explained Shui Qingyao's departure to seek revenge on the demonic beast that I see. Second senior sister. Do you need to see master? Would you like to come to my place for a while? Just moments ago, Ren Hongxiao learned from Li Mubai that he had only recently been taken as a disciple by their master. Hence he had yet to establish his own cave dwelling and was currently residing in the palace of his master. Ren Hongxia did not decline Li Mubai's invitation, as she often visited her master's palace in the past. Furthermore, Li Mubai was her junior brother, and it would be nice to become closer to him. Strangely enough, she found herself feeling a certain fondness for him. Thus, Ren Hongxia followed Li Mubai to his quarters. Upon discovering that his residence was adjacent to that of their master, she was, albeit slightly, taken aback that it was no great matter, as she had merely returned from a month-long training excursion, during which she had made some progress in her cultivation and thought it appropriate to report to her master. Ren Hongxia seated herself at the table, which made Li Mubai feel somewhat awkward, as he realized he had nothing to offer his senior sister, not even a cup of tea. Seemingly noticing his discomfort, Ren Hongxia retrieved some spiritual fruits and several exquisite porcelain plates from her spatial ring. Junior brother, I truly feel embarrassed. It seems there is nothing here to entertain you with, and yet you have graciously welcomed me. She said that there's no need for concern. After all, you are my junior brother, and as your senior sister, I should take care of you. As she spoke, she produced a bounty of spiritual fruits and some spirit tea. Ren Hongxia had noticed the spatial ring on Li Mubai's hand, which explained the abundance of items. By the way, senior sister, you mentioned a slight breakthrough in your cultivation. May I inquire as to your current level? Upon hearing Li Mubai's question, a hint of pride flashed across Ren Hongxia's face. To be honest with you, junior brother, I am currently at the mid-stage of the Golden Core realm, just a step away from the late stage. Li Mubai was genuinely surprised by Ren Hongxia's words. Although he had known her cultivation was higher than his own, he had not anticipated that she had already reached the Golden Core stage. He had initially thought she was still at the foundation establishment stage. However, this thought sparked something within him. The pink remote control indicated that with each breakthrough in his cultivation, he could increase the number of binding slots available. Previously, he had bound himself to his master, Shui Qingyao, upon entering the qi refining stage, and now that he had broken through to the foundation establishment stage, he could bind another individual of the opposite sex. To be honest, Li Mubai was not well acquainted with the Taishan sect and was unsure if there were suitable candidates for binding. He had been somewhat troubled by this earlier, but it seemed that a potential option had just presented itself to him. Observing Li Mubai's slightly astonished expression, Ren Hongxia smiled before continuing, Junior brother, there's no need to be surprised. After all, I entered the sect much earlier than you, which is why I am a bit ahead in cultivation. However, since you have been accepted as a direct disciple by our master, it is a testament to your remarkable talent. Thus, reaching the Golden Core stage is only a matter of time in comparison. My older sister's cultivation is even higher. She has already reached the late stage of the Golden Core realm and will likely attain full perfection in no time. Li Mubai had not expected that his senior sisters were all quite accomplished in their cultivation. The eldest sister, whom he had yet to meet, had already reached the late stage of the Golden Core realm, while their master, Shui Qingyao, had only attained full perfection in the Golden Core realm. It was surprising how close the eldest sister's cultivation was to that of their master. It was unfortunate that he did not yet know the whereabouts of the eldest sister. Otherwise, he would have swiftly bound her to his pink remote control. Nevertheless, Ren Hongxiao was quite impressive as well, as she was at the mid-stage of the Golden Core realm, while he was still merely at the initial stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. The return of cultivation would undoubtedly be of great benefit to him. With that thought, Li Mubai activated the pink remote control using his own spiritual energy, binding Ren Hongxiao before him. Ren Hongxia, completely unaware of what had just transpired, continued enjoying her spiritual fruit, oblivious to the fact that she had been bound by a heavenly-grade artifact, one that had its own indescribable qualities. After binding Ren Hongxia, Li Mubai felt a surge of delight, knowing he would now receive 2 opportunities for cultivation return each day. Moreover, his senior sister was indeed a natural beauty, embodying a completely different charm compared to their master. Shui Qingyao, whose temperament was more gentle in contrast, his second senior sister was quite chatty to be by the way. Junior brother, Ren Hongxia said, picking up a spiritual fruit from the table. Have you chosen a location for your dwelling yet? The so-called dwelling was essentially a palace, though cultivators preferred to refer to it as a cave dwelling. Some individuals, however, prefer to reside in caves for their spiritual cultivation. Not yet, senior sister. Do you have any suggestions? Li Mubai observed Ren Hongxiao enjoying her fruit and decided to join in. Tasting one himself, he had never indulged in such delicacies before, as he had only been a humble disciple in the past and had no opportunity to enjoy such luxuries. Ren Hongxiao nodded thoughtfully. While direct disciples can choose their locations freely on the Misty Peak, there are still certain guidelines to follow. For instance, inner and outer sect disciples are limited to residing on the mountainside or below. Our master's palace is located at the summit of the Misty Peak, so the cave dwellings of your 6 senior sisters, including myself, are all situated quite close to our master, that I suggest you select a location nearer to the peak. This way, if you encounter any issues during your cultivation, you can easily seek guidance from our master. Moreover, as my junior brother, if you have any questions regarding your cultivation, you can always come to us 6 sisters. Upon hearing this, Li Mubai recalled noticing several other palatial structures near the peak, which he assumed were indeed the cave dwellings of his 5 senior sisters that I see. Thank you for the information. Senior sister, there's no need for thanks. Aside from being closer to our master, there is another advantage to being near the peak. You must have sensed the spiritual energy on the Misty Peak. The closer you are to the summit, the more abundant the spiritual energy becomes. Thus, building a dwelling near the peak will greatly enhance your cultivation efficiency. Li Mubai contemplated this and realized the truth in her words. However, his personal need for spiritual energy was not particularly pressing, given his unique circumstances. While he could temporarily stay at Shui Qingyao's place, it would not be a sustainable arrangement in the long run. Therefore, he needed to select a location that was somewhat nearer to Shui Qingyao and his 5 senior sisters at this moment. Li Mubai had subconsciously begun to consider all 5 of his senior sisters as potential candidates for binding with his pink remote control. After all, binding with the pink remote control could also be beneficial for them. Not only would it eliminate all negative states, but it would also accelerate their cultivation speed in a short period. He believed his senior sisters would not refuse such an opportunity. As Ren Hongxiao munched on the spiritual fruit, she looked at Li Mubai seated across from her and felt an inexplicable sense of attraction towards him. It was as if he possessed a unique charm that drew her in. This left Ren Hongxiao a bit perplexed. Logically, she had encountered many talented young men before, some handsome and some with high cultivation. Yet none had stirred her heart like her junior brother did, especially his striking golden hair, which became increasingly radiant the more she gazed upon it. By the way, junior brother, she began. What is it? Senior sister, Ren Hongxia, then retrieved a small box from her spatial ring. This is our first meeting, and I did not prepare a gift. I present this to you. A second-grade spirit recovery pill. It can quickly replenish the spiritual energy consumed by a foundation establishment cultivator in a short time. There are 10 in total, and consider them a welcoming gift from your senior sister. Upon hearing this, Li Mubai glanced at the small box on the table. Oh, how could I accept such a generous gift from you, senior sister? We have just met, and you are already giving me such a valuable present. I truly feel unworthy. Despite his words, Li Mubai's actions were swift. In an instant, he snatched the small box off the table and opened it to reveal 10 gleaming pills nestled within, exuding a fragrant aroma. In the cultivation world, the classification of pills, techniques, and artifacts differed. Techniques and artifacts were categorized from yellow to Xin to earth to heaven, while pills were classified from 1 to 9, with 1 being the lowest and 9 being the highest. Although the spirit recovery pill was only a second-grade pill, its value was quite notable, as pills were never cheap, especially those that restored spiritual energy. They were essentially a cultivator's second chance at life. It seemed that his second senior sister was quite generous, evidently a small fortune in her own right. Unbeknownst to him, a sudden sensation of being pampered washed over Li Mubai, reminiscent of the past when his enchanting master, Shui Qingyao, had indulged him. Now, it was his second senior sister, Ren Hongxia, who showered him with gifts. He couldn't help but wonder if the other senior sisters would bestow upon him similar treasures upon their next encounter. In return, binding them all with the pink remote control didn't seem excessive, did it? Observing Li Mubai's actions, Ren Hongxia smirked. Although her little junior brother feigned modesty, his hands were far from sluggish. Such audacity would surely allow one to navigate the realms of cultivation with ease. After examining the elixirs, Li Mubai promptly stowed the box within his spatial ring. Thank you, senior sister. Ren Hongxia watched the scene unfold, her smile widening, though her brows twitched slightly, especially at the sight of her junior brother's miserly demeanor. For some inexplicable reason, she found him rather endearing. Junior brother, you are quite interesting. After a moment's hesitation, Ren Hongxia could only muster that phrase, as she struggled to articulate her thoughts on Li Mubai. Thank you for the compliment. Senior sister, strangely, Ren Hongxia felt the spirit fruit in her hand had lost some of its allure. 10 returning spirit pills were not inexpensive. Yet, given her current golden core stage, her need for such foundational elixirs was diminished. Otherwise, she would have been reluctant to part with them. Well, junior brother, it's getting late. I shall take my leave, and if you encounter any issues in your cultivation or otherwise, feel free to visit my cave abode. I will assist you with anything within my capacity. Her cave, adorned with the words Hongxia Palace, was not far from their master's palace, easily visible to anyone seeking her out. Won't you stay a little longer? Senior sister? No, I haven't returned in quite some time, and my cave requires some tending. Moreover, night has fallen, so I shall not impose further. You should rest early too. All right, I understand that I will certainly visit often whenever I have the time. Senior sister. With that, Ren Hongxia rose to depart, her demeanor exuding a sense of decisiveness. Truth. Li Mubai welcomed her early exit, for her presence hindered his use of the pink remote control. After all, he could not allow his senior sister to witness any embarrassing moments. If that were to happen, he feared she might resort to drastic measures to silence him. There was no rush to employ the heavenly tier artifact, the pink remote control, since time was still on his side. It was still early, with at least 3 hours remaining before midnight marked the onset of a new day. 1 hour equated to 2 of the mortal realm's hours. Admittedly, Li Mubai found himself unaccustomed to this method of timekeeping. Yet it was the norm within the cultivation world, a practice mirrored even in the mundane realm. With nothing pressing to occupy his mind, Li Mubai stepped out of the palace and began to meander aimlessly. He pondered the whereabouts of his beautiful master, and whether she had encountered the mysterious beast. He wondered about the creature's true strength, considering that Shui Qingyao, at the peak of the golden core stage, had suffered such a significant setback. Beasts in this world were no trifles. Some powerful creatures could articulate human speech or even take on human forms, establishing notable factions of their own. Although their cultivation was slow, beasts possessed a natural advantage over humans. Their longevity, ordinary humans, failing to break through the foundational stage, typically lived only around a century, while common beasts could easily live for hundreds, even thousands of years. Furthermore, the cultivation stages of beasts differed from those of humans, divided into 10 tiers. Tier 1 being the weakest, while Tier 10 was legendary, often referred to as beast kings or beast emperors. Such creatures could indeed be deemed formidable. As a Tier 9 beast corresponded to a human cultivator of the Ascension stage, and a Tier 10 beast aligned with those of the Tribulation stage. It was well known that those who transcended the Tribulation became true immortals. Previously, Shui Qingyao had provided him with text detailing the hierarchy of cultivation, granting Li Mubai some understanding. The human cultivation system also featured 10 levels: Qi Induction, Foundation Establishment, Golden Core, Nascent Soul, Out-of-Body, Transformation, Spirit Division, Integration, Ascension, and Tribulation. Currently, the head of the Taishan sect appeared to be a nascent soul cultivator. Though seemingly weak, the strength of a sect could not be judged solely by its leader. No one could ascertain the depth of a sect's heritage or whether ancient powerhouses were sequestered within its walls. The previous sect leader, Shui Qingyao's father, had never been reported as deceased, suggesting he might still be in secluded cultivation somewhere within Taishan sect. If the former sect leader was in such a state, what of the other elders? whether not previous sect leaders or venerable elders. After all, cultivators enjoyed long lifespans. Who knew if any ancient beings had lived for thousands of years, just like his beautiful master? Shui Qingyao, currently at the pinnacle of the Golden Core stage, was guaranteed at least 500 years of life. She appeared quite youthful and was merely a step away from the nascent soul stage, at which point she would gain a lifespan of a millennium. Should she ever succeed in transcending the tribulation, her life would stretch into eternity. It was no wonder countless individuals aspired to cultivate and join sects. After all, who wouldn't desire immortality? Lost in thought, Li Mubai's mind wandered further afield, even contemplating the prospect of transcending the tribulation and ascending. Meanwhile, he had unconsciously arrived at the mountainside, where traces of inner disciples began to emerge. Suddenly, he recalled that Lin Buffon's cave abode was situated around this area. He chuckled to himself, wondering if he might chance upon that fellow, as well as Lu Ruyan. Previously, they had tormented him relentlessly, and now he was eager to see if they would dare speak to him boldly again. Chapter 24. The return of cultivation from senior sister. With time to spare, Li Mubai made his way toward Lin Buffon's cave, hoping for a fortuitous encounter with both Lin Buffon and Lu Ruyan. Throughout his stroll, he toyed with the token of a direct disciple, yet regrettably, he did not encounter either Lin Buffon or Lu Ruyan. After their encounter, Lin Buffon had been lavished with praise from Lu Ruyan and promptly sought out his elder father. A long-serving elder, he sought both spiritual stones and a resolution to the matter concerning Lu Ruyan. After all, Lu Ruyan had unwittingly touched upon Lin Buffon's heart when she pointed out that he had already reached the foundation establishment stage, while she remained at the Qi induction stage, rendering her somewhat less capable of serving him effectively. As thoughts of Lu Ruyan's alluring visage ignited a fervor in Lin Buffon's heart. He eagerly desired for her to break through to the foundation establishment stage. Thus, he contemplated requesting a foundation establishment pill on her behalf. Following Lin Buffon's departure, Lu Ruyan did not linger in his cave. Having witnessed Lin Buffon's futile attempts to impress her, she found his self-proclaimed prowess laughable. Consequently, Lu Ruyan returned to her own abode to address her concerns. Although Lu Ruyan considered seeking solace with a male disciple from the mysterious peak, particularly the dashing Li Mubai, she was not foolish enough to act impulsively at such a moment. If Lin Buffon were to discover her dalliance, her plans would be in vain. She decided it would be wiser to wait until she secured a foundation establishment pill before pursuing such matters. With that thought in mind, Lu Ruyan hurried back to her cave to resolve her own issues. Li Mubai remained oblivious to these developments, regretting the missed opportunity to encounter either Lin Buffon or Lu Ruyan. After leisurely wandering for a while longer, he returned to the summit of the mysterious peak, where Shui Qingyao's palace awaited him. Gazing at the heavenly tear artifact in his hand, he pondered, Ren Hongxia must have returned to her cave by now. If so, let us see how much cultivation she can return to me. As he spoke, a faint smile graced his lips. Ren Hongxia had long since returned to her cave. Although she had been away for over a month, her abode remained untouched by dust, thanks to a small dust-warding array that was not particularly difficult to set up. As a woman, Ren Hongxia had meticulously arranged various minor arrays throughout her cave. Upon entering her room, she sat on her bed, a sudden chuckle escaping her lips. My little junior brother is indeed quite entertaining. She had not anticipated that her master would take on another disciple, especially a male one. It was noteworthy that among the 5 previous direct disciples of the mysterious peak, none had been male, even among all the inner and outer disciples of the ethereal peak. Male disciples are indeed a rarity. I never anticipated that this junior brother would possess such abundant resources to be accepted as a direct disciple by our esteemed master. Furthermore, it must be said that the young disciple's appearance is quite handsome, especially with his flowing golden hair. I have never encountered anyone like him before. Ren Hongxia sat there, and for reasons unknown, the image of Li Mubai suddenly surfaced in her mind, along with the scene of their recent interaction. Simultaneously, a ripple of emotion stirred deep within her heart. At that moment, Ren Hongxia anxiously shifted her legs, and her complexion inexplicably flushed a rosy hue. What is happening to me? A peculiar sensation enveloped her entire being. At the pinnacle of the ethereal peak within the water Qingyao Palace's annex, time passed without notice, and suddenly, the spiritual energy of the world began to converge once more. Concurrently, changes reemerged within Li Mubai's body. This time, he did not panic unduly, as he had just experienced such sensations not long ago. Having entered the foundation establishment stage, the spirals of spiritual energy within his dantian swirled incessantly. And within that spiral, it seemed as if a fountain of pure spiritual energy had manifested, gushing forth with unparalleled purity in an instant. This outpouring of spiritual energy fused seamlessly with the spirals, requiring no excessive guidance or intervention from Li Mubai. At the same time, the world's spiritual energy began to converge toward him. In that moment, Li Mubai realized that the fountain of spiritual energy within him was likely the so-called return of cultivation. With these energies originating from the same source as his own, the spirals above his head were indeed a sign of his breakthrough. They were merely the earthly spiritual energies stirred by his advancement, not a return of cultivation brought by the pink remote control. Originally, Li Mubai was merely at the early stage of foundation establishment, but after experiencing this return of cultivation, he directly ascended into the mid-stage. His cultivation was no different from his prior practice. His foundation was remarkably solid, devoid of any semblance of instability. Feeling the deepened richness of his spiritual energy, a faint smile emerged on Li Mubai's face. Truly, my esteemed senior sister is remarkable. Not only did she gift me spiritual fruits and pills, but she has also helped elevate my cultivation by a small realm that I must repay my dear sister Hongxia well in the future. Ensuring that she understands the profundity of generosity and the essence of selfless giving. At this moment, in stark contrast to Li Mubai's delight, Ren Hongxia lay powerless within a cave near the summit of the ethereal peak, her face a canvas of shame and indignation. What has come over me? Why did I just think of that junior brother? Have I developed feelings for him? Although he is indeed quite handsome, marrying him seems utterly absurd. After all, today was merely our first meeting. When did I become so shameless as to entertain such thoughts? With her face flushed crimson, Ren Hongxia glanced at her hands, her eyes brimming with tears, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Suddenly, recalling something, she softly uttered a sound of disdain. Chapter 25. The second sign-in, the yin-yang dual cultivation, harmonious method. Li Mubai remained blissfully unaware of Ren Hongxia's inner turmoil. Had he known that his golden-haired physique was so domineering, he might have rushed to the Hongxia Palace. After relishing the mid-stage of foundation establishment, Li Mubai patiently awaited midnight. After all, his system allowed for a daily sign-in. And once midnight arrived, it would be a new day, allowing for a second sign-in. The thought of the second sign-in filled Li Mubai with excitement, especially considering that the first sign-in granted him a heavenly grade artifact. He eagerly anticipated what the second sign-in would bestow upon him. As time passed, he finally heard the system's voice. Host may sign in today. Would you like to proceed? Yes. Host has completed today's sign-in. Congratulations on receiving the sign-in reward. The heavenly grade cultivation method, yin-yang dual cultivation harmonious method. As the system's announcement concluded, Li Mubai's expression turned decidedly peculiar. Confirmed. This system is nothing short of a lecherous one. It claims to be a sign-in system, yet has it ever provided anything serious since I bound it? First, I acquired a golden-haired physique that passively increases female affection, while the heavenly grade artifact from my first sign-in was indeed a treasure. It was hardly a proper one, and now it has gifted me the yin-yang dual cultivation harmonious method, a name that sounds far from respectable. Heavenly grade cultivation methods. Do such things truly exist? However, the next instant, Li Mubai's expression shifted from peculiar to astonished. Upon comprehending the yin-yang dual cultivation harmonious method, he gasped in disbelief that it was no wonder this method was so domineering. As the name implies, the yin-yang dual cultivation harmonious method is practiced through dual cultivation. However, despite its name, it does not require both parties to cultivate. This means that as long as Li Mubai operates this method during dual cultivation, both individuals will reap immense benefits. Moreover, the yin-yang dual cultivation harmonious method gathers the world's spiritual energy during the process, nourishing both bodies while promoting the flow of internal spiritual energy and transforming this earthly energy into pure spiritual essence, thereby facilitating cultivation advancement. This method serves as both yin-yang dual cultivation and mutual supplementation. Any female partner engaged in dual cultivation with him will also receive the same benefits that, of course. Li Mubai would not be overly surprised by the notion of enhancing cultivation through dual cultivation. Presently, he did not place too much importance on cultivation elevation. With the pink remote control in hand, he could obtain cultivation returns daily, ensuring his progress would inevitably accumulate over time. What astonished Li Mubai was that this method served as a direct pathway to immortality. In other words, as long as he engaged in dual cultivation with his partner, she could smoothly transcend tribulations and become an immortal. The thought sent shivers down his spine, for if he cultivated sufficiently with his partner, they could easily achieve the legendary status of immortals, without any barriers of cultivation realms. Though he could obtain returns on his own cultivation, his future partner would lack such an advantage that in an instant. A sustainable development path materialized in Li Mubai's mind. First, his partner would bind the pink remote control to grant him cultivation returns. Then he would use the yin-yang dual cultivation harmonious method to elevate her cultivation, after which she would return the favor by granting him further returns. This was a veritable path to transcendence. As his understanding of the yin-yang dual cultivation harmonious method deepened, Li Mubai's expression shifted from astonishment to peculiarity. No wonder this method includes the term harmonious, as mere dual cultivation would be far too mundane. At that moment, countless thoughts and actions flooded Li Mubai's mind, as if he had been immersed in them for a millennium. Reflecting on this, he could not help but exclaim, "My future partner is destined for great fortune." Having acquired the heavenly grade cultivation method, Li Mubai felt a surge of excitement as he delved into the intricacies of the method. Marveling at its profound depth and complexity, his engrossed study caused him to lose track of time, and before he knew it, dawn had arrived. Just as he remained entranced, he suddenly heard a commotion outside the palace. Upon hearing the noise, Li Mubai snapped back to reality and glanced outside, astonished to find that the sun had already risen. How could this be? It's no wonder I lost track of time. The method is simply too exquisite. But where is this noise coming from? Is it my senior sister? Or perhaps the master has returned? At this moment, Li Mubai, now at the mid-stage of foundation establishment, felt no fatigue from his sleepless night. Instead, he appeared invigorated. With a hint of curiosity, he gently opened the door. "Master? What has happened?" To his surprise, it was indeed his beautiful master returning, and more importantly, she seemed quite disheveled, her clothing in disarray, her complexion pale, and a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth. Li Mubai rushed forward, supporting Shui Qingyao. "Master, what has befallen you?" Coughing softly, Shui Qingyao let out a few rasping sounds. At this moment, her physical condition was far from satisfactory. How could I have anticipated that the wretched beast would seek assistance? I have unwittingly fallen into its trap. How infuriating! That damned creature, even willing to sacrifice its own realm, seeks to seal my meridians once again. Upon hearing this, Li Mubai was momentarily stunned. How could his master be entangled with her meridians? Just recently, the seal had been lifted, and it had barely been a day. Yet, she was once again subjected to this confinement. Cough, cough, cough. Just as Li Mubai stood in astonishment, Shui Qingyao broke into another fit of intense coughing, her body swaying uncontrollably. Quick as a flash, Li Mubai caught her, resulting in an ambiguous posture between the two, as if Shui Qingyao had entirely collapsed into his embrace. Chapter 26. The Rebellious Disciple. Shui Qingyao furrowed her brows slightly, her gaze revealing a blend of helplessness and shyness. Due to the sealing of her meridians, she felt no different from an ordinary mortal. Leaning gently against Li Mubai's solid chest, the warmth radiating from him stirred ripples within her heart. Her ears grew increasingly warm, as if they could boil an egg. She couldn't help but reflect on the decades of her cultivation, a solitary journey spent distant from the opposite sex, let alone experiencing such intimate contact. Yet, this man was none other than her disciple, Li Mubai. The embarrassment within Shui Qingyao intensified, as if she had regressed to her youthful days, her long-dormant heart now pounding fiercely. Particularly, the thought that she had once harbored fantasies about this very disciple made her cheeks flush even deeper. "Master, allow me to assist you inside." All right, as Li Mubai supported Shui Qingyao into the palace, he couldn't help but scrutinize her current condition. His master had certainly taken reckless risks. She had only just recovered from her previous injuries. And now, in less than a day, she found herself gravely wounded again. Moreover, when he had been helping her, he had observed her unusual state quite clearly. After all, he was now at the mid-stage of foundation building, and his sensitivity to emotional changes in others had sharpened considerably. Had his master just exhibited signs of shyness? This thought led Li Mubai to recall the peculiar physique he had acquired from the system. Could it be that his beautiful master had been affected by his unusual attributes? With this in mind, Li Mubai became bolder, eager to test the extent of his physique as a lure to the opposite sex. He also considered that since he had recently obtained the yin-yang dual cultivation technique, it would be a waste not to utilize it. With the return of his cultivation, coupled with the yin-yang dual cultivation, his advancement could potentially soar. As these thoughts crossed his mind, he tightened his grip on Shui Qingyao's hand, and she sensed this change, her heartbeat quickening. Was Mubai squeezing my hand a little harder? And it seems we are almost embracing now. Could it be that Mubai harbors some other thoughts towards me? Perhaps I'm overthinking it. He is merely helping me because I am injured. Yes, that must be it. Yet this embrace feels so warm. Noticing that his beautiful master showed no signs of resistance, even grasping his arm tightly, Li Mubai felt a surge of hope. Perhaps today he would have the chance to practice the yin-yang dual cultivation technique. With this resolution, Li Mubai activated the celestial-grade artifact he had obtained from his first system sign-in. Instantly, Shui Qingyao's pupils constricted. Could it be that she truly possessed some extraordinary physique? The last time this peculiar sensation arose, she had suspected something unusual about herself, and now, after her meridians had been sealed, the strange feeling returned. Shui Qingyao genuinely believed she had some secret, unexplainable attribute. This moment, an impulsive desire surged within her, not wanting Li Mubai to leave. It was as if a unique aura emanated from him, drawing her in. Most importantly, with her meridians sealed, she was effectively akin to an ordinary mortal. In a moment of reckless abandon, Shui Qingyao suddenly threw her arms around Li Mubai. Li Mubai, witnessing his beautiful master embrace him, felt a smirk tug at the corners of his mouth. Seems the time has come. Master, what is wrong with you? Nothing at all, overcome with embarrassment. Shui Qingyao struggled to articulate her thoughts. Meanwhile, Li Mubai began to channel the yin-yang dual cultivation technique. Li Mubai, what are you doing? Master, keep your voice down. You wouldn't want this matter to be discovered, would you? After all, my second senior sister has visited before and could return at any moment. You rebellious disciple. Time passed, and suddenly, boom, with a resounding crash, the door to Shui Qingyao's chamber was blown apart by a wave of energy, splintering the wood into countless shards. Li Mubai was sent flying like a ragdoll. Rebellious disciple. Li Mubai, you scoundrel, I will kill you. At this moment, Shui Qingyao was fully dressed, while Li Mubai's attire was somewhat disheveled, a trickle of blood escaping from the corner of his mouth. Good heavens! Does Shui Qingyao truly intend to kill me? She seemed quite cooperative moments ago. How could she turn so cold after the deed? Shui Qingyao's face was a mask of fury, her eyes glinting with murderous intent. In an instant, she appeared before Li Mubai, a long sword gripped in her hand, the blade tip barely a millimeter from his throat. Rebellious disciple, what do you have to say for yourself? How dare you commit such an outrageous act while your master is injured? You are utterly despicable. Seeing this unfold, Li Mubai could not help but grumble internally. It must be said, regardless of the world, a woman's mood can shift with astonishing speed. Even in the realm of cultivation, such capriciousness is not exempt. Just moments ago, she was blushing, and now, with her powers restored, she sought to kill him. Master, you seem to enjoy it just now. You scoundrel. What did you just say? Shui Qingyao raised her hand, and with a resounding crash, Li Mubai was sent flying once more. Yet her countenance was flushed with embarrassment as she recalled her own state from earlier, an image she found difficult to bear. Her heart was tumultuous. Should she kill Li Mubai? Yet, inexplicably, she hesitated. After all, he was her first man. However strange the circumstances may have been, the fact remained. Shui Qingyao had never contemplated finding a partner. Her heart had always been devoted solely to cultivation. Thus, the thought that Li Mubai could very well be her first and last man weighed heavily on her mind. Chapter 27. A mutual breakthrough at that moment. Li Mubai felt as though his bones might shatter. Shui Qingyao's strikes were indeed formidable. Yet, more bitter was the realization of how humiliating his earlier conduct had been. With the return of his cultivation and the effects of the yin-yang dual cultivation technique, Li Mubai had ascended to the pinnacle of foundation building. However, he had not anticipated that as one's cultivation deepened, one's physique would also become increasingly extraordinary. Even more astonishingly, at the critical juncture, Shui Qingyao had experienced a breakthrough. Indeed, Shui Qingyao was no longer at the perfected golden core stage, but had advanced to the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Li Mubai's earlier performance had resembled that of someone suffering from weakness. Coughing up another mouthful of blood, he trembled as he stood. "Master, silence." As she observed Li Mubai's condition, Shui Qingyao felt an inexplicable pang of sympathy. Yet, she had just lost her purity. The thought of it ignited a surge of anger within her. What had that scoundrel said? That she had enjoyed it? Enjoy? What nonsense! You, a mere foundation-building cultivator, could possibly bring me enjoyment. I am at the pinnacle of the golden core. But as this realization dawned on her, Shui Qingyao suddenly froze. Something felt amiss with her cultivation. Overwhelmed by the prior events and anger clouding her judgment, she now recognized that she had indeed broken through. She had effortlessly stepped into the nascent soul realm. This is utterly absurd. How could a breakthrough to the nascent soul be so uncomplicated? For a moment, Shui Qingyao gazed at Li Mubai with an expression of disbelief. As she did, her pupils widened in shock. Hadn't Li Mubai just achieved the initial stage of foundation building yesterday? How had he already reached the pinnacle of foundation building now? What on earth is happening in this world? Could it be that a simple night of shared intimacy between a man and a woman could lead to such breakthroughs? If it were truly the case, then who would still pursue cultivation? They might as well seek companionship in bed. Although Shui Qingyao silently berated herself, she meticulously contemplated the matter. Firstly, during the last instance when her body exhibited peculiarities, she was exceptionally attuned to the perception of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This indicated that after her body had manifested abnormalities, she could indeed accelerate her cultivation speed. Just moments ago, her body had similarly behaved oddly, and now her sensitivity to the spiritual energy had also heightened. However, this level of awareness was still insufficient for her to break through to the nascent soul realm. In essence, the crux of the issue lay with Li Mubai. The thought of Li Mubai's unknown special constitution, combined with the fact that he had now achieved the pinnacle of foundation establishment, led her to realize that both of their breakthroughs were inextricably linked to Li Mubai's unique physique. Gazing at Li Mubai's striking golden hair, which was now dusted with a faint layer of grime and stained with the fresh blood he had just coughed up, Shui Qingyao could not help but inwardly question whether she had been too harsh. After all, she had already ascended to the nascent soul realm, and it was likely that Li Mubai had sustained serious injuries at this moment. With this thought, a glimmer of softness flickered in her eyes, only to be swiftly replaced by resentment. How could I feel pity for this rebellious disciple? I must be blinded by foolishness. This scoundrel has just sullied my reputation. Li Mubai, do you have anything else to say? I have nothing more to say, Master. When I first entered the Misty Peak, I merely caught a distant glimpse of you, and in that moment, I was utterly captivated. I wondered how such a beautiful celestial being could exist in this world. Thus, I dedicated myself to relentless cultivation, yet I remained a mere servant disciple for years, a natural-born failure. But unexpectedly, the heavens favored me, and I was accepted as your direct disciple, drawing ever closer to you, Master. I was truly overjoyed. As for what transpired earlier, it was my fault. You may deal with me as you wish. I shall not utter a word of complaint. However, I must confess one thing. I love you. Having spoken these words, I would die without regret. After uttering this, Li Mubai stood fearless before Shui Qingyao, wagering on his golden-haired constitution and the belief that he had become her man, trusting that Shui Qingyao would not have the heart to kill him. After all, in this world, there has never been a shortage of gamblers. If one wins, they embrace the affluent life, while losing merely results in death. Yet, Li Mubai felt confident he would not lose, especially since Shui Qingyao had spared him twice already. Now, if she were to calm down, she would likely be even less inclined to end his life. Upon hearing Li Mubai's words, Shui Qingyao's heart trembled uncontrollably, having been sealed for many years. Get out of my sight. I do not wish to see you. Go as far away as you can. If you dare to appear before me again, I will surely kill you. After uttering this, Shui Qingyao returned to her palace with a peculiar mix of emotions. Meanwhile, Li Mubai stood there, a faint smile curving his lips. It seemed his gamble had paid off. Ha 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 ha. How amusing. However, it would not be wise to provoke his beautiful master again for the time being. One misstep could result in his demise. After all, his promising life had only just begun. At that moment, a small vial suddenly flew out from within the palace. Li Mubai swiftly grasped it, noticing the inscription on its surface. Third-rank healing pill. It appeared that despite her icy exterior, his beautiful master had a tender heart after all. He tidied his attire before heading in the opposite direction, realizing that it was not suitable to stay at his master's place for the time being. He needed to find somewhere to reside, and his senior sister Zixia Palace seemed like a fine option. She was always so kind. Surely she would allow him to stay temporarily, right? Meanwhile, Shui Qingyao sat upon her palace bed, her brows slightly furrowed. That wretched disciple. Can he not even express gratitude? Leave. Go on. Get out of here. I want to see just where you think you can run to. Chapter 28. That blow may very well be enough to incapacitate him. For reasons unknown, Shui Qingyao suddenly felt a twinge of grievance. This insufferable disciple, after doing such things to me, I only struck him a couple of times, and now he acts as if he is on the verge of death. I have had my reputation tarnished and am not allowed to vent my frustrations. Reflecting on the earlier events, Shui Qingyao felt an overwhelming sense of shame and anger, though her purity had been taken by this rebellious disciple. Her own state had also been quite peculiar, bordering on half-hearted and half-dash. Initiated, that as her thoughts cleared, Shui Qingyao began to recall the recent occurrences in detail. She had harbored a certain fondness for this rebellious disciple, as though he possessed an inexplicable allure. Her own body had also behaved strangely, and during the initial incident, she had found herself inexplicably thinking of him, even conjuring unspeakable images in her mind. Who could have anticipated that what had merely been a fantasy would materialize into reality in such a short span of time? After a moment of calm, Shui Qingyao discovered that her injuries had indeed healed, mirroring the first instance of her peculiar state. Just as before, following an indescribable experience, all her wounds had mended, and this time, she had even stepped into the nascent soul realm. In that critical moment, she had felt an extraordinary clarity of mind, and for reasons unknown, the spiritual energy within both her and Li Mubai had begun to circulate wildly, as if it was meant to be this way. Having practiced for many years, as the peak master of the Tai Xian sect's Misty Peak and the daughter of the previous sect master, Shui Qingyao was no stranger to the ways of cultivation. The moment the spiritual energy within her and that rebellious disciple began to operate autonomously, a thought and hypothesis sprang to her mind. This effect was strikingly similar to that of dual cultivation techniques. To say nothing of it, there was a renowned sect in the realm of cultivation, the Hawan sect, where both men and women practiced dual cultivation. The techniques associated with dual cultivation were indeed formidable, involving practices such as yin collecting yang or yang collecting yin, and even mutual complementarity of yin and yang. As long as one engaged in dual cultivation, their cultivation would progress rapidly. However, there was a prerequisite for practicing dual cultivation techniques. If one merely engaged in yin collecting yang or yang collecting yin, the individual being collected would invariably perish, having their entire essence, vitality, and cultivation drained away. The only way to ensure mutual benefit was through the mutual complementarity of yin and yang. This was also Shui Qingyao's conjecture regarding her and Li Mubai's current state. Yet, she could not comprehend why it was that mutual complementarity required both parties to cultivate. It was needless to say that she had never practiced any dual cultivation techniques, nor had she ever considered engaging in such practices. As for that rebellious disciple, it was even less plausible. He had been a servant disciple until recently and had only been accepted as her direct disciple for a mere 2 days. With everything about him provided by her, how could he possibly possess any dual cultivation techniques? What was even more perplexing was the fact that she had ascended from the pinnacle of golden core to the nascent soul realm so effortlessly. If this were truly a result of dual cultivation techniques, then such methods would be utterly outrageous. Although she had been at the peak of golden core for several years, Shui Qingyao estimated that if she were to proceed with conventional cultivation, it would likely take her a year or two to break through to the nascent soul realm. This was also why she had been eager to confront demonic beasts. Conventional cultivation was far too slow, and the demon cores within those beasts were excellent materials for alchemy, which was precisely why she sought them out. Just as this thought flickered in her mind, it was abruptly severed that if it was not a dual cultivation technique, then it must be related to their constitutions. That rebellious disciple had undoubtedly awakened some special constitution. Could it be that this special constitution was akin to a dual cultivation constitution? If that were the case, then this disciple was truly improper. Even the constitution he awakened was so scandalous. However, just as she contemplated this, Shui Yaoyao's expression became peculiar once again. She found herself uncertain whether she possessed any unique constitution, and the state she exhibited seemed rather unseemly. Shui Qingyao had no understanding of the pink remote control and was oblivious to the existence of such systems in the world. Thus, she consistently attributed the peculiarities of her own body to her own shortcomings. Moreover, she speculated that if her condition truly indicated a special constitution, it might only manifest after she sustained severe injuries. Whenever she was gravely wounded or her body exhibited abnormalities, that strange sensation would arise, only to dissipate and restore her to her peak state afterward. Lost in her musings for an indeterminate time, Shui Qingyao hastily shook her head. Cursed be that rebellious disciple. Her mind had become muddled. She had even begun to entertain wild thoughts. Casting aside her chaotic reflections, Shui Qingyao glanced at the disheveled bed, particularly noting the glaring plum blossom mark upon it. After observing the mark for a considerable while, she waved her hand and directly stored the bedding, marked by the imprint, into her spatial ring. Uncertain of the motivation behind her actions, she felt that this item should be preserved, as it represented her innocence after all. Once the bedding was secured in her spatial ring, Shui Qingyao sat there, gazing vacantly at the shattered palace gate. Occasionally, she would bite her lip and suddenly burst into laughter. That detestable rebellious disciple. Did he not realize that for cultivators, even a mere disparity of one realm creates an insurmountable chasm, especially since she had just achieved a breakthrough to the Yuanying realm at the last moment, while that rebellious disciple remained merely at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. A significant gap in realms separated them. Surely that blow was enough for him to endure. With this thought, Shui Qingyao couldn't help but laugh, her demeanor as enchanting as a spring breeze caressing peach blossoms. Exuding unparalleled charm. Chapter 29. Senior Sister. You wouldn't want to see this, of course. Li Mubai was oblivious to the little emotional turmoil occurring within Shui Qingyao's heart. Presently, his thoughts were focused on avoiding his beautiful master for the time being. Especially after having just offended her, it was remarkable that she had not taken his life, indicating her considerable restraint. This incident also provided Li Mubai with a newfound understanding of his golden-haired constitution, which seemed to bestow upon him an unexpectedly high degree of passive attractiveness. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Shui Qingyao to have engaged in such relations with him, even in her peculiar state. His golden-haired constitution undoubtedly played a significant role in this development. While pondering these matters, Li Mubai sought out a secluded spot to sit cross-legged. After all, his body was indeed in a state of severe injury, and his aura was somewhat disordered. He retrieved the small porcelain vial his beautiful master had tossed to him earlier. The third-grade healing pill. Upon seeing the pill, a faint smile crept across his lips. His beautiful master might claim to be unwilling, yet her heart remained quite sincere. First, she had injured him gravely, and then she provided him with a healing pill. Was this what they referred to as a stick followed by a sweet date? Without further hesitation, Li Mubai swallowed the pill whole. As it entered his mouth, it transformed into a warm liquid that slid down his throat and into his stomach. He felt a powerful medicinal force rapidly spreading from his abdomen throughout his entire body, akin to countless ants crawling through his veins, stimulating his limbs and organs. Normally, first-grade pills were the least valuable, corresponding to cultivators at the qi gathering stage. Second-grade pills were for foundation establishment practitioners, while third-grade pills were meant for those at the golden core stage. This third-grade healing pill was specifically for golden core cultivators to heal their injuries, since Li Mubai was at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Consuming a third-grade pill posed no significant issue. Once the pill was ingested, its effects manifested instantly in that moment. Li Mubai felt a warm sensation enveloping his entire body, as though he were soaking in a hot spring. The pill's medicinal properties fervently mended the injuries he had just sustained, gradually healing his broken meridians and restoring his damaged internal organs. After a brief period, Li Mubai exhaled deeply, opening his eyes. A glimmer of brilliance flickered within his gaze, and color returned to his complexion that he marveled inwardly, impressed by the efficacy of the pill, which had restored him remarkably in such a short span of time. Truly worthy of being a third-grade pill. It appeared that his beautiful master was rather fond of him, despite having been rather harsh during their earlier encounter. Now that he had regained most of his vitality, Li Mubai stood up, performed a cleansing incantation, tidied his attire, and then made his way towards the Hongxia Palace. That was where his senior sister, the Hongxia fairy Ren Hongxia, resided, since he could not return to his master, Shui Qingyao, for the time being, and now found himself homeless. He had no choice but to seek refuge with his beautiful senior sister, who had previously invited him to visit whenever he had the chance. And here he was, approaching an elegantly designed palace, with the words Hongxia Palace inscribed upon its plaque. Li Mubai felt a peculiar sensation. If it was indeed a palace, then it should be referred to as such. Why did these cultivators insist on calling it a cave dwelling? If they truly favored cave dwellings, wouldn't it be simpler to find a cave to live in? Taking a few steps forward, Li Mubai knocked on the palace door. Senior sister, open the door. It's your junior brother. Ren Hongxia had enjoyed a remarkably peaceful and deep slumber that night. Perhaps it was due to the unprecedented experiences of the previous evening, leaving her somewhat fatigued. In any case, she had slept soundly and comfortably. Yet within her dreams, the figure of her junior brother appeared, and he was exceptionally gentle towards her. Ren Hongxia lay upon her bed. A hint of shyness flickered in her eyes. Though she had achieved the golden core stage of cultivation, theoretically, she no longer required sleep. Even if she were to abstain from sleep for 10 days or half a month, her body would not suffer any ill effects. Nevertheless, Ren Hongxia found herself inexplicably drifting into a deep slumber last night. As she gently bit her lip, she recalled the events of her dream, particularly the tenderness her junior brother had shown her. Suddenly, she heard his voice. Huh, is it an illusion? Did I just hear my junior brother's voice? Am I not already awake? Senior sister, open the door. It's your junior brother. Li Mubai's voice rang out once more from outside the palace, jolting Ren Hongxia upright from her bed. It was not an illusion. Her junior brother had truly come. Just last night, she had fantasized about him, and in her dream, he had exhibited boundless tenderness towards her. Now he had come knocking at her door, leaving her somewhat flustered. Hastily, she rose, performing the cleansing spells and purification techniques, ensuring that she presented herself impeccably before she approached the palace door and opened it. Upon seeing Li Mubai standing outside, particularly his striking golden hair, Ren Hongxia could not help but smile brightly, her beauty shining forth uncontrollably. That smile left Li Mubai utterly captivated. His senior sister appeared exceptionally radiant today, and she seemed to be in high spirits. Could it be that his pink remote control had facilitated her restful slumber? Li Mubai, unaware of the accuracy of his conjecture, thought to himself, Junior brother, you've come. Please come in. Thank you, senior sister. Why has my junior brother come to visit me? Ren Hongxia led Li Mubai into the reception hall. To be honest, this morning my master returned, and I inadvertently angered her. As you know, I have yet to establish my own cave dwelling, so I am temporarily residing with my master. However, my master grew furious with me and expelled me. Now, I have nowhere else to go, and I haven't met the other senior sisters and junior brothers yet. Given your beauty and kind heart, I could only seek your assistance. Surely, you wouldn't want to see your junior brother suffering in the wilderness, would you? After all, you wouldn't want to see me starve and freeze, would you? Li Mubai's pitiful expression elicited a soft laugh from Ren Hongxia.